Also by video conference and in person at City Hall Committee Room number 1. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including Mississauga of the Credit, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Chippewa, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse new First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with Mississauga of the Credit. If you're registered to speak today, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list, and the list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Executive Committee page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speaker box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council on CMP and the Clerk meeting portal. IT staff is here to help you out. Are there any declaration of interest? Going once, twice, okay. May I have the motion to confirm the minutes from the meeting of October 31st? Councillor Ainsley, all those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Thank you. Before we begin the agenda run through, I would like to add a new business item. Establishment of the Toronto Community Champion Award. That is, are we okay to add that as a new item? We like champions. All those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Thank you. This item will be held down so the clerk can make the item public online before we consider them in further detail later during this meeting. Okay. The items in front of us. Just a second here. All right. Memorandum of Understand, 10 point. Why don't we have 10.1? It goes to 10.2.
These are speakers.
Pardon me. 10.1. Memorandum of Understanding between City of Toronto and Toronto Regional Conservation Authority. You are holding it? You're moving the motion.
Madam
Yes.
Mayor, I was just going to say, as the chair of the Board of Directors of the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, I'm very happy to move it. And I just want to thank all of the city staff on our side of the table for all of their work getting this here. Thank you, including our city manager. You're welcome, sir.
All those in favor of thanking the part here, thank you. The paws need to stick together, absolutely. Councillor Carroll is holding item 2. This is the housing system, yes? Okay, and we have speakers anyway. Okay. 10.3. Tax and rate supported interim operating and capital spending authorities. There's speakers. Thank you. 10.4. The interim water and wastewater consumption rates. I see no. Oh, I am talking about 10.4. 2024 interim water. Councillor Carroll wants to hold it?
No, just 1 second. We have a problem with the WebEx connection.
We have a problem with the WebEx connection.
Just give us
Have a sip of coffee, drink some water, and fan yourself. Are we working?
No, we need to restart the system, so just give us a couple of minutes, please.
We are restarting the WebEx system. And I know that.
The camera's back on.
The camera is now back on. Hallelujah. Okay. The 10.4 interim water rate. May I have a motion?
And 4?
Yeah. More, Deputy Mayor Molly have moved to staff recommendations. All those in favor, post carry. Oh, so why don't I just deal with all of it? The interim solid waste management service rates and fees, 10.5. Okay, thank you. Councillor Ainsley, rising to the occasion again. All those in favor, opposed, carry, thank you. Development charge, defer revenue activity and balance, that's 10.6. Money, see, normally Councillor Carroll would do all this. Oh, since you as the vice chair of the budget committee, Councillor Perks, all those in favor? Opposed, carry? Okay. The City of Toronto, the 10.7, City of Toronto investment report for the 6-month period ending June 30th. We earned some money. Councillor Perks, all those in favor? Thank you. You notice we earned 187.4 million in interest, huh? Okay. 10.8, capital variance report for the 9th-month period ending September 30th. I will hold it. No. Councillor Carroll did not need to hold it. Councillor Perks, all those in favor, opposed, carry. Is the next item. Operating variance report for the 9-month and we're holding it for Councillor Carroll. And there's probably speakers on it too. No, there isn't, but let's just hold that. 10.10. City of Toronto Reserve and Reserve Fund balance as of September 30th. Did Councillor Carroll want to hold it? No. Pardon me, an end of a cold. 10.10. Anyone? Councillor Perks again. All those in favor, opposed, carry. Defer revenue report. Staff recommendation. I do want to, yes, it's been moved by Councillor Carroll want to hold that, okay? And maybe Councillor Person take carriage and hold it for a time being. Probably she wants to note that this $2.3 billion impact because of Bill 23, the provincial bill, okay? We'll hold that. 10.12, updates to the constituency service and office budget policy. Councillor Fletcher. Okay. Next item. No, I got it. Thank you. I'm good. Donation, 10.13. City donation activity. Who likes donations? Okay, Deputy Mayor. We got $1.15 million of donations to the City of Toronto. Yay, all those in favor? Opposed, carry. We are holding 10.14 because there's speaker. 10.15, Curb Lane CaféTO program. It's a review of 2023. I think Councillor, there's a presentation and probably some of you may want to say a few things about that. It's being held for presentation. Cummer Station, response to council motions, 10.16.
We have speakers.
Okay, and there's speakers also anyway. Thank you, Councillor Cole. 10.17, advancing Eglinton East Light Rail. I suspect Deputy Mayor.
We have speakers.
Deputy Mayor probably want, there's deputants, okay. I'll hold it under your name, Deputy Mayor McAfee, okay? Open data centralization policy update, 10.18.
Speakers?
There's a speaker, thank you. 10.19. That's adopted housing, net zero, et cetera, and developing Etobicoke-centered, all those contracting service for new Etobicoke Civic Center. 10.19, speaking about Etobicoke, you want to hold it or you want to move it? Okay, that makes sense. And Deputy Mayor Morley moves staff recommendation. Etobicoke Civic Center, here we come. All right. All those, yeah, in favor, opposed, carry. 10.20, Etobicoke Cities, there's a speaker? Okay, all right. And 10.21, FCM, Councillor Ainsley, you are so diligent. Let's receive your report for, did you want to speak to it? No, we good?
I'm happy to move it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed, carry. Are there any other items? Walk on.
This is item that we have, but we'll hold that down in your name.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Carroll is here, yay. All right. Excuse me. Speaker list. Miguel, are you here? Yes, madam, I'm here. Yes, 10.2. We are talking about housing. You have 5 minutes, Miguel. Tell us if we should build more housing.
Yes.
All right.
So, good morning, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Miguel. I'm a member of the Regent Park Neighborhood Association. Today, I'm here to speak on this item that is so important for Torontonians who are living in the streets, are homeless. I want to make a few comments about the report, point 1 and point 4. I believe this is an ambitious plan that requires input from tenants, the voices of those who live in those buildings, TCAC. I believe this plan will enhance the number of RGI units, thus it will become home for new TCAC tenants. So, you know, Mayor Chow, we have an underfunding problem at the TCAC board. There are only 3 tenants, directors. How is it possible in 2023 we can have 6 as a fair number to balance the game? Just like here, you know, you got 4 in this side, 4 in the other side, but not 3 compared to 7 or 8. The other thing I want to request is that we have requested a meeting with you to discuss RGI units in Regent Park, phases 4 and 5. I understand that we have a new deal with the province. Congratulations. But you're dealing with the devil, Mr. Doug Ford. So here's the problem. If Justin Trudeau doesn't match or goes above his expectations, I think he wants to pull the deal off. So we might be in trouble. So last week, I attended your budget consultations with Shelley Carr was present, and I spoke on the 38% increase for taxpayers, which is really hurting a lot of people. It may hurt if we don't get a proper deal with the province. I also left you a love note for you to see. Can we put it up there? It's not. Well, it says that there's a plan B in case plan A, you know, the new deal with the province fail. There's always, we can defund the police and send 50% to fund housing strategies in the city of Toronto. I know it's not a popular topic, but what the heck? I've been saying this for the longest time. The other item I want to talk about is about the summary. when it comes to the summary, it says that you want to work with indigenous communities, you want to work with non-for-profit and cooperative housing sectors to build housing. Okay, that's wonderful, the land trust. Councilor Chris Moyes announced last June or July that there is a plan for a co-op housing in Regent Park, where is currently the presentation center of Daniels Corporation, 500 Dundas Street East. We have been in conversations with Daniels since 2021 during the pandemic. Chris Moyes is saying that, well, I have made an effort to meet with Tridel and TCAC to see if this can become a co-op in the future. So I want to thank you for your work in securing some new deal from the province and hopefully from the federal government, so we can afford this co-op housing in Regent Park, the first indigenous co-op, by the way. It will be a thumbs up for everybody. It will be good for the city. The other thing I want to talk is about the Tenant Advisory Committee. You know, currently the Tenant Advisory Committee is under review. I gotta tell you, I have been attending this committee since 2011. You know, the bottom line is this. The members who belong to our agencies, the EDs, they find that grassroots community activists are a legal liability to be part of this committee. This is a waste of taxpayers' money because it should have been said, this is a place welcome for everybody. Rich Indian, poor Indian, everybody's welcome. But here we are saying, we don't know if we are going to accept grassroots members of the community. And Paul Johnson is the manager who is paying this consultant firm. And I don't know how much we're going to be paying for this super consultation process that wants to limit the participation of members of the community. The other thing I want to talk about is about TCAC. Look, we're going into.
You may have to wrap up soon.
Yes, we are going into a situation where we're going back to 931 Young Street because of some problems, and the next board meeting is tomorrow. There's a letter from the ABC Neighborhood Association that wants 100% affordable housing, and I support that.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Thank you for your time.
Everything
right.
in 5 minutes.
Thank you for your presentation.
You got any questions, Mr. Mayor?
That's good.
Madam Mayor,
Does
anybody? I'm
anyone
here
have any
24 hours.
questions?
And what's the last thing I want to add? Can we make a motion to cease firing?
well, I think that might be out of order.
It's
We're
time
speaking
to
about
recognize
housing.
other cities of around the world. We're saying.
Yeah, is there another speaker?
No speakers is
Okay.
get into video.
Demand ceasefire. Demand ceasefire.
We hear you.
Demand ceasefire.
On the item 10.2 on housing, align housing mandate and strategic effort. Any other speaker? No other speaker. Councillor, anyone want to hold this item? Can we move forward with it? Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Molly. Pardon my coughing. Recommendation has been moved. All those in favor, opposed, carry. Thank you. And the next item that is being held is 10.3. And we have a speaker, Derek Moran. Are you here, Derek? Thank you. You have 5 minutes, Derek.
I just want to say by me speaking at this meeting, this shall not be deemed to be in any way my consent expressed or implied in doing so as fraud. God bless His Majesty the King and long live His Majesty the King. And let the record show that I do not consent to the warrantless searches taking place downstairs by the corporate security T-shirt police here at Toronto City Hall. And I want to thank you, Mayor Chow, for whatever hand you played in reconfiguring the Toronto Police Services Board, as it must be a relief for Councillor Cheng now to know that she won't be bullied anymore for asking too many questions at the police board. So in this report it says, The City of Toronto Act 2006 requires that the city annually adopt a budget, including estimates of all sums required during the year for the purpose of continuing its business. So it just so happens that, again, Miguel there, last week at the police board, said he had a conversation recently with the CFO, Stephen Conforti, over there. Miguel said, quote, "Because I found out from the City of Toronto CFO that taxpayers were on the hook for a 38% increase in taxes." Now, I'm confused by this because graphic Matt Elliott on October 12th tweeted while covering a city council meeting on an item about the capital budget, Councillor Lily Cheng again, asks if it's true the city is projected to underspend on projects by $1.6 billion at year end. Staff say yes. Now, the staff in particular being newly named CFO Stephen Conforti again over there. Now, the reason I'm assuming Councillor Cheng asked that question at City Council was that she heard someone named Damien Moule speak here recently at Executive Committee. And after hearing Damien speak here at Executive Committee recently, it was Deputy Mayor McKelvey here who asked, are we over budgeting? It was a little longer than that, but the beginning of the question was, are we over budgeting? Then, Interim CFO Stephen Conforti starts off with, well, the way we budget our capital program. Then he stops, resets, and switches it up to, but we wouldn't issue debt until the project actually incurred expenses. You know, Scott Duncan once said that the only reason a government employee wouldn't give you a straightforward answer to your question is because they are scamming you. At no point did Deputy Mayor McKelvey ask Mr. Conforti, at what point do we start issuing debt for a capital project? Her question that Mr. Conforti evaded in answering was, are we over budgeting? What Damien Moule at Executive Committee recently explained in a very nice way is the budgeting fraud that has been going on at the City of Toronto ever since the Mayor Miller years, in which every year this place has underspent their budget, and every year has only spent 2/3 of what they budgeted for. He said the city is projected to underspend this year by $1.6 billion. So how are we supposedly in a $1.5 billion hole and facing the prospect of an astronomical property tax hike? You know, I didn't bring a calculator with me, but let's all just logically work this out. $1.6 billion underspent on capital budget that's been going on every year, minus $1.5 billion hole, because nobody here last term thought of asking Dr. Davila, where's the evidence that lockdowns are based on science, by the way? That comes out to $100 million. Oh my God, it turns out we have a $100 million surplus here. There's no reason to jack up property taxes 38% after all, is there? This sounds like nothing more than a shell game that's been playing here at the Toronto City Hall since 2006. And I was expecting Damien to, oh geez, here we go. You guys turn, oh, here we go. So there were some slides here that Damien brought up. I thought he was gonna be here today. The one on the bottom here, he says the unspent money stays in reserves, which leads to some strangeness. So in 2022, he highlighted that capital budget underspend was $2 billion, transfer to reserves from operating budget, $1.3 billion. I guess you didn't spend $1.3 billion on operating also. You just don't need that money for no reason. Capital from current, as Deputy Mayor Cole said last time, we need, what does that even mean, capital from current? And debt issued, $1.2 billion, which I'm fuzzy on. Why would you need to issue $1.2 billion in debt when you're underspending by $1.6 billion every year since 2006? It seems like a form of securities fraud that this place has been pulling.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions to the deputant? Seeing no question, Councillor Carroll, can you move the item?
I can. I had some questions about it, but got them all taken care of offline. So
You
I'm happy to
asked
move
the question already,
recommendations.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you're moving the recommendation in front, the
Yes,
staff
please.
recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed, carry? Thank you. We have the next item. We have speakers at 10,
Actually, 10.9 is.
10.9. Councillor Carroll, we held it down for you.
Sorry, which item are we on now?
10.9 is the operating variance report for the 9 months ending September. That you would note the
Yes.
money, the backstop, and I held it down for you.
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate that. Richmond Street was fighting me again today. But I wanted to ask, first of all, I wanted to ask a question in the opening summary. The report takes us through, where we're at in terms of the COVID impacts in the 2023 budget, but it does separate it out at the end. And at the end of it, there's almost 50 million separated out, excluding COVID impacts. Almost 50 million of it is just divisions doing their best to rein in and underspend. Am I right about that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that's correct. So while we are projecting a deficit, the deficit is primarily driven by COVID impacts, where we had budgeted and assumed federal and provincial funding that are not coming forward, but offsetting in that impact is around $50 million in overall positive variance through prudent financial management.
Right. And is that everyone doing a little bit, or is it one or two superstars coming in underspend?
It's across the board. I think that you do have a couple of areas that are contributing more than others, and then you've got a little bit coming across the board from most of our programs. There is an appendix where you see the net projected variance, where it gives a display on each of the programs and how they're expecting to perform to year end.
Okay, good to know. And in terms of the dashboard, I didn't have time to go back and read the comment, but in terms of the dashboard, things are not looking good in fire services. And while we're doing budgets right now, I don't know that I reviewed that one. I've reviewed so many. I'm pretty sure I wasn't on the fire services team. And I'm wondering, because it looks like we're at risk all the way through to the end of 2023 in projection. So what's the challenge there? And is it something that the proposed budget for 2024 seeks to resolve?
Good morning. Through the chair, Toronto Fire Services has experienced an increased overtime callback to ensure that we keep our levels of service required to serve the community. We are projecting to see a overtime expenditure of $30.3 million by the end of the year. As of the end of September, it was $25.5 million. I can say that our projection is a $5 million reduction over from 22. We've implemented some measures to reduce some of the overtime. Currently, the challenge stems from having 10% of our staffing complement unavailable due to WSIB, modified duties, and 77 vacancies. So that 10% vacancy is causing the overtime to ensure the service level.
So, usually because of the way the shift structure works, if the complement is up, we don't expect to see much overtime in fire services. Is it that if they go into overtime, it's that they're filling a whole day?
Through the chair, that is correct, Councillor. It can be a 12-hour shift or a 24-hour shift, but mainly in operations, they're filling a 24-hour shift.
So if we do have 10% out, then you're going to rack it up pretty quickly. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions on that one. I can move the report, Madam Mayor.
Did you want to?
Unless anybody else has questions.
Does anyone else have any question to staff? Councillor Carroll, did you want to speak?
Yep.
Just before you do this, I will save most of my comments at council when we look at this new deal, because
Right.
this is connected to
Right.
The deal that was struck. This report highlight the one-time money that there's a tremendous draw into our reserve funds. We're depleting the reserve funds. One of the reasons is because the federal government last year and this year, well, did not come to the table to support us it's a COVID hangover, when we have to run the TTC during COVID time. And as we had ridership drop, we're still paying for it. And there's a dramatic increase of the number of people living in shelters. We're now paying close to $800 million a year. So you're seeing the impact here. You're also seeing the impact of this year in the tremendous increase of number of refugees arriving to our shelters, which is why the operating variance point that out. And if you add all that up, we are in fact quite short. And which then led to this discussion about the big budget hole coming into your budget committee of 1.5 billion. Now, the deal that we got from the provincial government, which we'll go into in fine details at council, as the staff is bringing a report there. We just didn't have enough time to bring it here. Deal with some of it. The problem is that one of the funds specifically said that it needs the federal government to come on. It's conditional, especially the shelter and housing one. The shelter and housing one is about $200 to $300 million. More likely going to be 200 million just for refugees sheltering, refugees alone. So you've heard this before, and you're going to hear it again, that we are needing the federal government to step up. If the federal government doesn't step up, we are still in trouble. We won't be able to get some of the funds that are put aside for us by the provincial government. So those of you that are very close to your federal member of parliament, this is the time for them to deliver the funds that the city of Toronto needs. Pay up. Whether they are Ukrainian refugees or refugees from Africa, from all over the world. So, Councillor Carroll has moved the recommendations in front of you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Thank you. The next item is 11, which we held down, deferred revenue report. Councillor Carroll, we held it down for you. Did you need to speak to it?
Yeah, well, two questions. First of all, the little one first. I noticed that we now see a pretty substantial amount in there of contributions that are community benefit charges, which is the new way of collecting those revenues for the community. Is the amount that's assumed in here, those are CBCs already delivered, cash in hand?
Through you, Madam Mayor, any revenue that you'd see reflected in the deferred revenues would be cash in hand. I will say, to date, the amount of community benefit charge we've collected would be limited. I think the expectation is that that would grow over time.
And so here's the obvious question, because I think, and I probably residents are even smarter than governments, but there's a huge amount of money here and a lot earned. But we call them deferred revenues because we see them as committed. Are they committed? Why can't we just balance the budget using some of these dollars now and cross our fingers for later?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so not only is the existing balance fully committed against obligations, we actually have more than 2 times the level of obligations against the current balances in our deferred revenue accounts to be able to support primarily our capital program over the next 10 years. A perfect example would be about $2 billion of our deferred revenue balance is associated with Toronto water revenues that's collected and held, and will support a capital program that will draw more than $10 billion over the next 10 years against those funds.
So if it's listed here, it's committed to those things, and we're actually committed beyond this amount.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Okay. And it says restricted by provincial legislation. Does that refer to all the dollars, or is that just a rule for some of the dollars in here, and some of them are our choices to be committed?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it would be either by legislation or agreement. As we speak to legislation, that would primarily pertain to development charges, any Section 42 funds or things of that nature.
Okay. But ultimately, if we were to spend these dollars, because we're overcommitted, if we were to say, oh, let's draw from this and just solve all our problems, because we're overcommitted, we would have no hope of catching up.
Through you, Madam Mayor, first, you'd be limited in your use in terms of where you could spend them. Second, you would need to see a reduction in your capital program over time based on the reduction that you would take.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Anyone else have question? Nope. Councillor Carey, you moved staff recommendation?
Yep, happy to. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor, opposed, carry, thank you. Next item, we are at 10.12. Councillor Fletcher, you held it.
Yes, I did, and I've spoken to Mr. Patchlock, and I don't think we have the number, but I understand the desire is to kind of bring that budget into the digital age. And I'm just looking for what the average digital spend is for all the offices, Madam Mayor. But I don't know if we have that yet, so I'm prepared to just wait, but I wanted you to know what I'm looking for.
Through the speaker, no, we don't have that number yet. I can roughly, on the CMS, Constituent Management System, of the 16 offices, it's about $50,000, but that doesn't include MailChimp and Zoom and other platforms that councillors use. So we would need more time to gather that up for you.
Yes, thank you. So that would be, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to ask that the staff look at those numbers. So we're actually dealing with MailChimp, because I think the budget wasn't developed when we had basically worked only with email. And then the platform, Zoom and other Teams, everything else that we've had to install in order to meet with constituents on big issues over the pandemic in particular. I'm not sure that's accounted for here, and I'd like to make sure we could do that, so. Thank you. I'm hope that I'm really clear on those kind of 3 things, that rather than just
Through the
for
speaker,
action.
we will bring those numbers and provide it to you for council, yes.
That's great. So possibly, it might be possible to look at meeting more of the reality of the digital requirements. And I don't know if all councillors do use that, or I have no idea, but at least looking at the averages for the top users, of which I know I'm one, and I think there's quite a few others. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay. Councillor Fletcher, no one else have any questions?
Well, I just want to, I think probably should just go without a recommendation, just because the numbers aren't, they're only for replacing CMS with 4Action or Nation Builder, but MailChimp isn't included and other things of that nature, and at least we should have that, a look at that prior to finalizing that number, Mayor.
So you want this to come to council
Without a
without
recommendation.
recommendations?
In order to give staff a chance to look at
To look at that,
those
okay.
numbers.
Are we all right with that approach? Yeah, yes.
So if they're going to do that, can I also suggest they look at like phone bills? Because now all our staff have mobiles, and I think it's a lot higher than it's ever been in the past as well. And so anyway, I think they should look at that as well with the other stuff. That's all kind of the changing nature of work.
the electronic age motion.
Yep, maybe bulk purchasing can get us a cheaper rate, or maybe, I'm just saying. Okay, motion going to council, sorry, the staff recommendation without motion.
Madam Mayor,
Councillor Carroll?
Can I just ask on a point of procedure, and it's awkward because we're now in committee, I don't know if staff can still answer, but it's starting to look like there are a lot of changes, and I'm wondering if there would be a timing problem with just actually deferring it for a month. I'm starting to see an unattractive navel-gazing long item at council if we start into changes. It's always our best moment.
I would have to agree with Councillor
Could
Carroll.
we perhaps?
The unattractive navel gazing could happen.
Could we perhaps see if we can, having had it seen a bit of the light of day now, and it seems there are some changes that need to be made, is there a problem with waiting a month and then bringing it back?
Bringing it back here?
Yeah,
We can ask questions here again? Okay.
so that we can be sending it to council with a sound endorsement?
He says yes, that's fine. He says there's time.
All right.
Yeah, let's
This
do
item has been
that.
deferred, and then we will have it come back. Oh, pardon me, the clerk said. Yeah. Councillor Fletcher has withdrawn the motion, and
I
this
am
item is
withdrawing
going to
that
be
motion.
referred
I'm
back
withdrawing.
to deferred, pardon me. For staff further comments. Okay, all those in favor of that approach? Thank you. Well, might have just saved us 6 hours at council. Thank you. That is good. 10.14 have speakers. We have Darryl Brown, CEO of Canadian National Exhibition. Welcome to City Hall again. Yep, that, I won't start the clock yet.
Other side, maybe? Yep. So, just give me a moment to for it to start up.
Are they going to distribute your flyer too?
Yeah, I'll mention.
Disconnect it. Just
Not
take
there?
it out and, yeah,
Okay.
just unplug it and then put it back in.
Okay. There we go, great, thanks. Thank you, Mayor Chow, I believe.
I'm ready when you are.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here once again. I think the short answer in having looked at the feasibility assessment is if you are supportive of the CNE, you should be rejecting any further consideration of Therme because it would be incredibly disruptive and have a significant financial negative impact on the viability of the CNE. So we, from our perspective, we reject the notion that there should be further consideration of Therme on site at Exhibition Place. However, with the negotiation of the deal with the province, there is an opportunity to consider other more expansive development in the master plan that would be both supportive of the CNE and I think of benefit generally to Exhibition Place. We at the CNE had contracted with Populous to do our own version of the master plan back in 2015. We also contracted with Charlie Smith, the principal of Populous, in 2019 because we wanted our issues to be considered comprehensively as part of a master plan consideration. I'm not going to go through all of the slides here because of the limited time, but I'd like to identify some of the options that we thought could be of benefit and should be considered. Basically, we're looking at a more than just pavement scenario. With the possibility of adding parking, there's potential to add an iconic events field, have a green parking area with a gateway to Ontario Place, and also a venue that would support youth sports and event production. We looked at a number of alternatives in terms of what could be done south of BMO Field. One is a grid layout. This option is based on a diagonal grid with traffic-bearing skylights, ventilation grates, and solar collector panels. Trees could be added to provide shade, respites, and organizational elements and to reduce the scale. But I think the magic is actually in broadening this over the lakeshore and connecting it to Ontario Place, where you would have solar roadways. Now, when I'm talking about solar roadways, there's a significant materials opportunity here. If you use tempered glass and photovoltaic cells, you can create an intelligent energy harvesting pavement complete with built-in heating elements for de-icing in the winter and LED support for signage. We've looked at alternatives again. We also have a banded layout. This design uses light and ventilation towers for the parking below grade and adds a dramatic nighttime element to the site. And again, if you extend that over to Ontario Place, you would get 3,200 parking spaces underneath and the ability to program all of that area above. Now, if X Place is interested in promoting community activities on site in a more meaningful way, you could look at a third option where there's an event field layout. This option combines paved plaza with a multi-purpose artificial sports field. Again, you can either use light and ventilation towers or light wells and solar panels using the technology I referred to earlier. With the extension over Ontario Place, you could have 2 sports fields there that could also be used for programming and event production. Of course, this is on the assumption that the province will step in and fund the underground parking and could fund this development. We've also looked at the potential for a year-round entertainment district. The use of a portion of existing buildings, including the food building, Horse Palace, Enercare Center expansion, the base of BMO Stadium, and the Queen Elizabeth building. This would replicate things like, for example, Camden Yards, Baltimore's Harbor Place, or LA Live at the Staples Center, or T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, or the Sprint Center, the Electric Light District in Kansas City. We would support the development of an entertainment district provided the CNEA played a role in management and could ensure that the CNE production wouldn't be jeopardized. We've looked at our projected growth, and in fact, this is probably an underestimate in terms of the numbers, since we've already hit 1.6 million in 2023, but we're looking at least a 1.8 million attendance by 2038. And you can see at the bottom of this table, there's a significant increase in the support acres required to meaningfully manage the CNE event. But in any event, we wanted to speak to you today about possibilities that would be compatible with the CNE as opposed to doing something on site such as a Therme, which in our opinion would not have very much in the way of an economic spin-off other than to the benefit of the owners of Therme. Whereas if you look at a master plan relook, then that could very much be beneficial.
Thank you for that visioning, and thank you for your presentation. Any questions to the deputant? No, yeah, Councillor Holiday.
Mr. Brown, thanks for coming. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about the CNE's experiences with who comes to the X Place site and who comes to the fair.
Yeah.
And what that means for tourism in the city.
Well, first of all, the data from 2022, we're still working on our 2023 data, but the data from 2022 tells us that 45% of the people come from outside of the GTA. And what I think is most impressive about the statistics in terms of the demographics, we cover all age groups almost evenly and all income groups almost evenly. There seems to be a perception with some people that this is a blue-collar event, and I'm not by any semblance denigrating blue collar, but we cover the range in terms of income distribution, in terms of age, from people averaging under $20,000 a year to people averaging over $300,000 a year in earnings. So the demographics are significant. We are the 4th largest fair in North America and the largest community event in this country.
So the fair is 144? 44. And is it fair to say that the fair is a center of technological innovation, entertainment, arts, culture, and it always has been?
Yeah, that's one of the, I think, again, misgivings in perception by some. We were coined the showcase of the nation for a reason. If you look at every decade, and including what we do today, we focus on innovation, we focus on supporting startup invention, and we focus on demonstrating what's new in technology. So that's part of our raison d'etre in our membership. We are a community nonprofit organization that has membership from arts and culture, membership from business and industry, and membership from agriculture. So it's a comprehensive, dedicated effort at looking at how we move forward.
Now, the fair peaks in August. Obviously, your staff work out through the year and you hire people up through the summer.
Yeah.
But what are the thoughts on the Canadian National Exhibition about being a cultural center of excellence 365 days of the year?
Well, we've been focused on looking at, of course, we used to program the site year-round. And if you look at, there was a comprehensive report done actually in 1966, another one done in 1978, that continued to support the CNEA doing year-round programming. So we've been looking at trying to develop programming on site. We did have an exhibition that ran for 178 days this year. We have an art gallery. People might not realize that we had an art gallery from 1902. And in 1965, the city approved the transfer of 347 artworks that were CNEAs to the Art Gallery of Ontario. But we have a rich history in the art sector. We are now programming a gallery on site year-round, and we are seeking to lease the Better Living Center year-round to do substantial programming that would benefit the community and also have economic impact.
And last question, Madam Mayor. X-Place could be characterized as the city's fairground. It's a place where lots of things culminate throughout the year. How important is the configuration and the availability and the flexibility of the fairground in addition to the periphery around it, about it being a central gravitational force to bring people? How important is that to the Canadian National Exhibition's year-round plans and its survival beyond 144 years?
It's enormously important to preserve the flexibility of this site. People look at it, and there's editorials every year in the Globe and in the Star about the exhibition grounds being a dead zone. People who write that don't know how the exhibition grounds work and how they can be deployed. For example, one of the things I wrote about in the submission that was forwarded earlier to this committee was the band shell. We built the band shell in 1936. That band shell could support community music programming year-round. We are willing to support it and to renovate the band shell and promote community activity on that site. That's what it should be used for. That's what it was created to be used as. So there are gaps in our programming now that the CNEA would love to step in and facilitate and fund, including the capital requirements to renovate both the BLC and the band shell.
Thank you. Any other questions to the deputant? No?
If I could just add one other comment, that there was in the distribution that was posted online, there was a glitch, I think, in the software, and there was a line deleted from Appendix B. It's a kind of important line because it relates to when we assume occupancy at the Better Living Center. We assume occupancy on April 3rd every year, and that line was somehow blocked out in the online posting. I think I've distributed copies of both the presentation and our submission, which has the intact original version, including that line. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Rick Emmis, from Chair of the West Side Community Council. Five minutes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Rick Amos. I'm with the West Side Community Council, which represents 13 West End residents associations around the catchment area of Exhibition Place. So we've reviewed the reports and the associated documents. There's a number of things that I'll bring up in point form. Impact on city assets. The 192 acres near the waterfront adjacent to Ontario Place has been a city asset for over 140 years. Proposals to the province risk irreparable damage to these grounds, contradicting the approved Exhibition Place Master Plan Phase 1, the Exhibition Place Strategic Plan 2022 to 2026. The aim was to shift away from an ad hoc approach to using the 192 acre site and promote year-round activation to the benefit of growing local population. The master plan was to serve as an example to what could be achieved in coordination with Ontario Place. This ad hoc proposal threatens the extensive studies, reports, and community consultations that informed the master plan. Potential long-term ramifications. Offering any space at Exhibition Place for consideration appears as an attempt to address the province's impact on the Toronto waterfront at Ontario Place. However, without a thorough and full consultative process, this may open up complexities for the future around such as traffic, parking, and green space, with ramifications for future generations. Fiduciary responsibilities and considerations. Questions also arose about fiduciary responsibilities of the City Council. Does offering city-owned site align with the interests of Toronto's residents? Can a more suitable non-waterfront location be offered? Is there a 95-year lease involved? Can the city negotiate a more equitable fee structure? What if the province accepts the offer but proposes substantial modifications? Contingency plans for the facility's fate if Therme fails needs clarification. Impact on major events. Consideration of relocating Therme to Exhibition Place will impact major events like the CNE and the Royal, potentially forcing them to relocate outside the GTA. This raises concerns about the implications and feasibility of such a move on this historic site. We are deeply concerned that this is not the appropriate place for the Therme Spa. We feel it may diminish the recent efforts through the master plan to transform and revitalize this site. There may be other alternatives, including leaving the Better Living building as is. That should be explored fully before an ad hoc decision is made. The community deserves a full and robust consultation of what happens on the Exhibition Place grounds. Privatization of public waterfront lands should be done with considerable caution. I thank you.
Thank you. Consultation is always good. Any questions to the deputants? No? Thank you for coming
Thank you.
to City Hall today. We have Adam Rogers, a video conference request.
Yes, you can hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
you have 5
Thank you.
minutes, sir?
I'll get started. Perfect. So I'll keep this nice and short. I was going to talk about another issue later, but I noticed this one on the record, so I figured I would speak to it. I mean, I think it's ultimately, I think as much as I appreciate the staff's hard work on this file, I think losing such an important piece of city real estate as the Better Living Center is really not ideal. I think everyone can agree, as we've seen right now, how versatile this building is. We're currently in plans, the city's in plans to possibly use this for temporary housing, shelter housing for folks during the winter. I think that's a heck of a lot better use of that site than a spa. Ultimately, I do appreciate the effort that both the city and the mayor and deputy mayor have to try to make the best out of a less than ideal situation. But let's let the province figure their own stuff out. Hopefully, the fight will go on for the local community groups to see if we can get a better situation out of that. But giving up city land I don't think will be the best bet. I mean, this is I don't think it's going to happen, but honestly, there's many great private sites. For example, the Woodbine Mall location that is unfortunately currently in receivership, and I would have hoped that the Therme folks could have cited that site instead of downtown on Ontario Place. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. I'm sure that the council will decide if they want to go forward if this goes through to council. But I think ultimately, we should keep this land, the Better Living Center for ourselves, for the city, for city use, and not for a spa. And honestly, I don't think the province is going to go through it based on the laws that they're going to go through. All right, thank you very much. I will hop off. I'm sure no one has questions.
Thank you, Adam. All right, I think that's all the speakers. Any other speakers? If not, a motion, Deputy Mayor, to move receive of this item. All those in favor of receipt, thank you. Next, we have 10.16. 15, CaféTO. Is there any speaker to it? If not, Councillor, there's a quick presentation about the changes we made. Anyone? Barbara Gray is here. CaféTO, those of you that have been talking about CaféTO, we have a short presentation. A quick one, just so you know when your constituent call you what to say.
I think I got it.
Excellent.
All right, we're ready for you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Mayor. It's always a technology challenge for me, so I'm happy to go. So I am going to talk just very briefly to set up just a little bit of context for CaféTO, reminding everyone that this is one of a number of outdoor dining programs that we have in the city. The first being sidewalk cafes, which are open, available to be open year-round and require a permit. The second is the small frontage program, which does not require a permit and is available year-round. Patios on private property, which through some actions the council have recently taken, we've actually expanded that program to increase the size and the allowability in various zoning designations. And then today talking about CaféTO and the curb lane program, which is located on the street in the parking lane directly adjacent to the curb, which occurs between May 1st and October 15th and does require a permit. So I'm just going to briefly go over some of the changes that we've made between 23 and 24. I wanted to say that we had great partnership with the city's customer experience team to really do a deep dive on the experience of operators and and the city staff in implementing the program last year. We heard about a number of modifications that really were required to make the program meet the vision and align, Mayor, with your vision that you described when we were out with the media and some really impressive operators back in October. So one of them was to have one division taking the clear lead. Transportation Services will be that division. We are going to be doing the permitting directly. We have transferred that function from municipal licensing and standards, and we have also transferred that team internal to transportation to our permitting and enforcement unit, which is very, very experienced and comfortable in delivering on permits. And our partners in economic development and culture will continue to work closely with the business operators and the BIAs to help make sure that their issues and needs are addressed. We heard that the process was cumbersome and took too many steps and required too many points related to the application, and that application process was not very well understood by the applicants. So we've really focused on simplifying that experience, making fewer steps, shorter turnarounds, earlier decisions for people, and then providing some opportunity to further customize some of the safety setups and the concrete barriers for that program. In terms of the resources, in 2023, CaféTO became a permanent program. Council adopted it as a permanent program. It did still have some bugs to be worked out with regard to that. And so we have made some modifications, especially adding some additional staff resources so that we can actually meet the timelines that have been laid out in front of us, and further application support for intakes and reviews. We don't know how many applications we're going to get this year, but I do have some good news about returning businesses that are participating in the program already set up for 2024. As you might remember, we had some concerns about the timeliness of setups in the beginning of the program. There were some concerns about the competing demands of spring cleanup and setting up CaféTO. So we did start in mid-May to institute those safety setups, and that didn't work as well as we had hoped, especially because we had nice weather. So we're going to be starting those setups again at the beginning of May with the goal of having 90% of the installations in place by the May long weekend. We'll be starting east to west, because last year we did west to east. So, and the first in will be the first out, really trying to get the most expansive program timeline for people.
Just hang on. I hear a lot of rumbling down here. This is a really important presentation, and it had a lot of, the staff put a lot of work putting this together. May I just ask folks to keep the conversation maybe outside if you have to, or whisper as much as you can. Continue. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. The next point was on communication and education. Applicants felt that the communications that the staff provided was not adequate, and so therefore they didn't really understand the program requirements, especially in a timely fashion when they needed to. So in addition to issuing pre-approvals for the 2024 season, we also have updated and moved forward the kinds of education and communication materials that we are providing to operators, including an updated guidebook to make it a lot easier for them to know what they have to do and by when. And then lastly, some policy changes around the application and permit fees, the timelines for installing accessible platforms, and also some new setback rules and requirements, asking that some of the typical things that we did to fit CaféTO in the curb lane, where we had to make some modifications to setbacks, that we could do in consultation with councilors as it made sense to do so without having to bring motions through to council. So all of those you will find in the report, as well as some modifications for our first in CaféTO pilots on King Street and Duncan Street to be able to make those permanent. So you gave us some timelines to conform with, and we have them here. The first one was that pre-approval notices for all 2023 permit holders that were going to come back in the same configuration as they were in last year in 2024. We would have those out by November 30th. We aimed to beat that, and we did. We got them all out on November 20th. The application period, the pre-application period is between now and the end of January. In that time, we're working with operators who still have some outstanding issues, mostly around platform plans, to get those in compliance. And then we will open the application application process for new applicants in January 15th of 2024. We want to close that application period by March 1st so that we can review all the new setups, we can review the platform designs and get 90% of those, or better if we hope to, in by the May long weekend. And then a little bit of a grace period for people to install their platforms after that timeline because there's some logistics that need to be managed, and then removal of the cafe equipment by October, and then we'll be planning for 2025 season. So we had 204 operators who want to come back in their exact same configuration as 2023. We've sent them a full pre-approval letter. We had about 105 that had some missing temporary accessible platform submissions or other issues that still needed to be sorted out. We also communicated with them, and staff are currently in process of working with them directly to get those issues sorted out so we can issue their permits as quickly as possible in January. And then we did a review of the upcoming construction season to try to assess where there were cafe setups for 23 that would be in conflict with construction in 24. I'm happy to say there were only 3, but we will endeavor to get them as much of a season if we can to schedule the construction so that we could at least give them some time in the right of way if that's at all possible. A couple of last items. This is my last slide. We just wanted to go over some costs. Staff have recommended the continuance of the 3-year phase-in of fees, so this would be the second third of the total fees. On average, an operator will pay about $7 per square foot per month for the curb lane space with CaféTO. That's about $1.50 in permit fees to the city and about $5.50 accounting for the platform fees, versus about $38 per square foot for commercially leased space in a restaurant. So it's a good deal. We know that the value and the cost of platforms has come down quite substantially since our initial interest in having them installed for a couple of reasons, having to do with the fact that there's a bit of an industry now for leasing platforms, so there's a little bit more competition there, as well as lower lumber costs. So that's been helpful. We know that our friends in economic development and culture are continuing to implement the grant programs to help support the restaurant operators with some funding to offset some of their costs. And we also know that in 22, the CaféTO patios delivered approximately $203 million in economic benefits to the city. We know this is a wonderful program that helps to support our restaurants. It's also something that the city takes great interest in supporting. It helps to enhance and improve the public realm, and so we see it very much as a cost share opportunity between us and the restaurants to deliver that benefit. So that's all for me. Thank you for the time to present.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor McKelvey and Fletcher.
Thank you, and thank you for your work on this and the advanced approvals, and hopefully that helps a lot with next year. So I think I'm always mindful that we're using public space for private profit. So what is the total subsidy that the city will pay our cost for this program next year?
So the total subsidy, so the total cost that we would pay is, we're anticipating is 3.7 million, and we're anticipating recovery from the program fees to be just a little over 500,000. So it would be about 3.2 million in subsidy. And my colleagues in economic development and culture are here as well if you're more than 2 questions
And
deep.
so that per restaurant then, basically how much are we subsidizing each restaurant that's participating?
Through the chair to you, Councilor McKelvey, that would work out to about $8,000 per restaurant participating in subsidy.
And on the economic benefits of $203 million, like how is that realized, or what is that? Because I realize they're generating sales tax, income tax, but like if you're talking economic benefits coming back to city, I think this is just highlighting another problem with, why the whole process that we have with the other levels of government is flawed. But where do those 203 million in benefits go, and how do they, what are they describe those as?
Through the chair to you, Councilor McKelvey, that's total economic impact of the program. So you're right, that's proceeds for the restaurants, but as well the spending that they would have in the broader economy on things like the platform and the patio.
Right, but ultimately it's the province and the federal government that are realizing that.
tax revenues, yes, would primarily accrue to the other orders of government.
Right, but of course, keeping people working, that's important. I have been continually pushing for sponsorship for this program. Where are we at with that?
Thanks for the question, Councilor McKelvey. To be fair, right now, this is a program that is being made permanent and being improved, but has had some criticism fairly of it in the media and the public. As a result, the brand equity right now, to the best of our work with potential sponsors, is limited, but hopefully will improve. Our other second challenge is that in terms of the visibility for any potential sponsor, it is quite limited given the nature of the program, and they would effectively be funding the program to its bottom line versus, say, having visibility on a patio that we can't offer up to a potential sponsor.
So as the brand improves, is this something that we'll continue to look for, recognizing it won't happen next year, but is this something we'll continue to work on? Improve the brand, look for sponsorship opportunities, and maybe if not this program, other restaurant programs, that frees up cash as well to contribute towards this?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilor McKelvey, absolutely. We do think that we're turning a corner on the program. We have conversations with a lot of organizations in this space like Amex, Interact. So we think that we will get to a point where we will be able to sell it. We also do think that it is a challenging sponsorship market, and for example, we continue to seek a title sponsor on the Licious set of programs as well. So it's a bit of a challenging sponsorship market right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you to Transportation for your hard work on the file. And I'm looking forward to a roaring success next year.
Councillor Fletcher,
Thank
you
you.
had questions, and then Morley?
Thank you. There were quite a few businesses that were terribly frustrated in 2023 with the operations of getting set up and 3 different divisions. So this report really addresses, that's the idea, is to streamline one-stop shopping, one division, not going in 3 different places to try to figure out what's going on, right?
That's correct.
And so you have a slide up there about the pre-approvals, and then there was a slide about the approval of the platforms. I'm going to assume that if you had a platform last year, if you could go back to that slide, please.
Oh.
That same platform would be approved. You're not going back out to reapprove that for that month.
Hold on, Counselor. I've got to find that slide. Did I make it?
Not yet.
Okay, which one?
It's the timeline one.
Oh,
that you
okay.
had up there.
There it is.
There we are, thank you.
Yep, so through the mayor.
So it says platform designs due, but people who already had one in 2023 with a platform, why would they be submitting designs?
They would not. So just to
this is for
clarify,
new.
just for new.
So
That's
that should
correct.
be a little clearer. New platform designs due, and you have only 3 weeks set out to look at those. Do you really think that's enough time?
So we're certainly open to some expansion there. We are hoping that because there are some pretty straightforward designs that Tabia has helped to put together, because there are some new purveyors and a lot of people are using the option to lease platforms instead of creating them themselves, that will be a sufficient amount of time. We honestly don't know how many new applications we're going to get this year. We do know, and we've already communicated with operators from last year, that if they had an approved platform design and they're coming back in the same place, as part of that, they would get to install the platform in the same configuration. We did have a couple of people who still needed to get those platform designs into us from last year, even though we let them operate. So yeah, so we're catching up on that.
Thank you. And I just want to ask a question. This is an odd question to Mr. Lintern, but, oh, yes, you weren't expecting that. It's just a public realm question, that the kind of exciting and vibrancy that this brings to the main streets, how do we qualify that? I know we've quantified it. Is that kind of an important ingredient for Toronto as an exciting public realm opportunity? First question. And then, do you think there could be opportunities to make it even kind of, I'll call it more beautiful, so that it's even a better public realm? But I'll let you answer the first question first.
Well, through the mayor, I think your question implies my answer. Yes, in many respects, and certainly we look at our public realm to its fullest purpose. It's as a complete street. It's for mobility, but it's also for public enjoyment, certainly public safety, but also public amenity. We want people to linger. We want people to be together in public space. It's good for social cohesion. So for all of those reasons, I think we would, certainly CaféTO adds, I think, a complexity to the public realm, which people enjoy, and you just get more bang for the buck in so many ways that I just described. And certainly, I think there's always opportunities with our BIAs and with other public realm work that we've done over the years, whether it be through the capital project or enhancements to the capital program, ways to make the spaces work even better for more people.
Thank you. And just back to you, Ms. Gray, and thank you for this report. I have noticed, CaféTO, this type of cafe is common in other cities as well. It's exciting. Montreal has them, but they don't have the big barriers leading up. And so I'm wondering how we can make that public realm even better, having the big concrete blocks that we have out in front of City Hall, so we're being protected, they're protecting the building. Has there been any thought to that? Because it does take up parking, it takes up space, and it's, I would say, not that attractive.
Through the mayor, so the safety setups that we have, I know that some of the furniture that we put in makes the cafes that have been set up in previous years look a little bit like construction zones, and we've heard that feedback, and we're trying to minimize or eliminate that as much as possible. Part of the reason why the platforms are helpful in doing that, in holding that line adjacent to the curb lane. On the concrete barriers, certainly on the leading edge, it is a really critical safety feature, and one that we have also seen in a number of other cities, maybe not all other cities, but we are trying to use the bare minimum of safety equipment in order to ensure that we feel comfortable that people can enjoy time in the curb lane, which is adjacent to a live lane of traffic, and make sure that they are meeting that safety standard that's set out by the province of Ontario in Book 7. So we try to be in compliance with that.
So those orange pylons that are littered everywhere.
Those are the ones we'd like to get rid of. And we also had some really good feedback from some of our ECDEV colleagues, and BIA leads went to Chicago, and they saw some setups there in terms of painting and wrapping barricades that were really much more attractive, and we're going to take on some of those ideas this year.
Could we see some of those designs when this comes to council, please, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Molly, let's losing momentum on this item.
Thank you. Sorry, I have a few quick ones. Thank you, Barbara, for the great work, and through you, Madam Chair. How are we monitoring the implementation of the CaféTO program in conjunction or in tandem with implementation of new Complete Streets projects, understanding that there are some challenges in communities that are not used to new configurations, less lanes? How are we monitoring how those two things are coming to play together?
Through the mayor, thanks for that question. That's a good one. Certainly the conversion of any kind of lanes in the street to different uses than people are used to can be quite challenging. And sometimes it can have real impacts, right? So the thing about CaféTO that has been quite beneficial is that it is in the time of year when things, I hope, are a little bit sort of more people convening on the street. There's more events, there's more kind of social space on the street. We've tried to manage the program so that we are still providing curb space for other businesses and other uses in the area. And that's why it's so important to have the partnership of the BIAs. But I think it will always be challenging for communities, especially in some of the more suburban communities where it's not quite as dense. The land use and the configurations between housing and the street are a little bit different. And it's just, it makes it seem as if it's more difficult to get around. And so we have to try to continue to look for other options to support people, to get people out with a connected cycling network so that they can make those trips in different ways and support their access to transit so that it makes it more accessible.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I actually have a question. Deputy Mayor Malik, can you just chair for a minute? This presentation is fabulous. It's very clear. And it answers all the questions that a lot of the BIAs and the restaurant folks have. Would you be able to circulate it to the various BIAs that have sponsored this program or considering it? And possibly to previous applicants, maybe, because then they are very clear. And also, I know the federal government have been quite supportive in providing grants, and they haven't said yes to the next round. So the $200 million of economic benefits that they, mostly through the sales tax, they should understand that element. Are you okay with sending your fabulous report to folks that you think would be, especially working with the economic development team, people that might be interested in it?
We're happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. I see no other questions, thank you. Speaking on this item, Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. I'm very happy that this report's come back. It said it would come back in late November, early December, and here it is on time. So that's very heartening, so that we're on time in the scheduling that was laid out. And as you know, in June, I asked for the operational review, looking at having 3 units or 3 divisions working on one program, what some of the challenges and obstacles had been, and some of the frustrations for businesses to be part of it. And I'm so happy that you've been able to get this report to us today. And I want to thank you very much for that. And I also want to thank you very much, Madam Mayor, because you did roll up your sleeves and weigh in on CaféTO, which is a signature program here in the city. It's very exciting, and I know it's been a hair-pulling program for sometimes for those who are implementing it and those who are hosting it on the street. But as far as a vibrant Main Street is concerned, when this first came up last year, we had the Restaurant Association come, we had many people come to say, we're still in the recovery, as well as this is an exciting program. If it can be beautiful, there's nothing like going down a main street at night and seeing the lights, seeing people dining on the street. It adds a complexity, yes, as Mr. Lintern says, but an interest level. It creates people coming. You're coming to the business district, you're going to have something to eat, you're going to do something else, you're meeting people, it's a social atmosphere. It is many, many things besides just a cafe. And having some of these deadlines that you've put in so clearly, it's wonderful. I really look forward to that, and making it easier for businesses. I know many businesses in my ward had said, I'm not doing this again. I can't, I simply can't. It took many, many, many phone calls, which you also got. So I think when we first said we're going to make the dates clear, we're going to make the application easy. If you've had one already, you're going to get pre-approved and we'll know when it's going to go in. That lowered the temperature for everybody and allows everyone to have a possibility to have this program. This program may not last forever, but at least removing all the impediments to a smooth rollout. And these small businesses, just like the city, we're doing our budget now and planning ahead. They have to plan ahead for 2024. They have to look at their budgets and see, are they going to be able to do this? So we put these barriers last time because they're hiring staff. They have to order the platform. They have to do so many things when you're thinking about a small business. It's not like they have staff to do that. Usually that's the manager or owner doing that for these restaurants. So this is a great, great, great step forward. And I just want to thank you for your leadership, all the divisions that have managed to come together and turn it over to one division. That doesn't happen very often, so congrats on that. And again, to the mayor for weighing in and pulling everything together so that this, I hope, 2024 will roll out. Businesses will be happy. New businesses can join knowing that they have a very clear pathway to get approvals. And let's have a drink on a patio next summer.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Next, I have Councillor Malik.
Thank you very much. And I want to echo much of what Councillor Fletcher said about this report and the incredible work that has gone into, learning the best lessons from this last year's rollout. As was mentioned, CaféTO is an integral part of our city's vibrancy over the summer months. It's what's helping our businesses be able to plan, at least for a little bit more of the longer term, and that's really a benefit to all of us. And of course, being able to grab a meal, a drink outside is bringing life back to our streets, as it did through the pandemic, but continuing to invite more folks to our neighborhoods, helping businesses and coming through this challenging period. And as we know, and we've discussed many times that this was a transitional year for the program, and restaurants in my ward, Spadina, Fort York, and across the city felt the effect of the challenges of a rollout for CaféTO during the summer. And while it originated as that pandemic pilot, it's grown to protect and I would say enhance, particularly for me, our downtown neighborhoods and our restaurants, as they are contending with that return to pre-pandemic levels. And any slowdown or confusion with CaféTO not only affected the businesses, but especially the workers who count on those bustling patios and that capability to be able to live and work in the city. And so I'd really like to thank, in my word, the participating restaurants, the BIAs, who shared their concerns about the rollout this past year with me, and their very detailed and thoughtful suggestions about improvement, many that I see reflected in this report, and that is really important in terms of how we continue to hold confidence and demonstrate that we're not just hearing what the improvements are, but that we're showing what difference that makes. I'd also like to commend Barbara Gray, your team and transportation, the mayor, and everyone who's been part of taking these important steps forward. This is how we create a better program where we are able to continue to lift up and champion the merits of what we saw through the pandemic and as we move forward. And through this report, I do see the areas of concern that have been raised with me addressed, ensuring a much smoother rollout right away, right, with these deadlines, these dates, as we move into the spring and the summer months. And of course, I've had many conversations, especially with our BIAs, about, not just one initiative that CaféTO is, but also about the kind of culture that we want to see in our day life and our nightlife in this city, a patio culture, one where our streets are alive and where we continue to demonstrate that Toronto is a welcoming place for visitors and folks who call it home. So thank you very much for all the effort around this.
Councillor Bravo.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Fletcher and Councillor Malik said much of what I wanted to say. I want to add the recovery isn't over. Main Street businesses are struggling to repay those federal COVID loans. And I have possibly the greatest number of BIAs in Davenport, and we received many requests, many complaints. They've been handled in a forward-looking way, in a way that's responsible, responsive, and so I really want to thank you for the work that you've done and the public service has done. I think in addition to saying that we're going to have vibrant streets, putting people out in the public realm makes the streets safer. It creates out of every main street a town square, and I think that's really powerful and valuable. Also, we're at Economic and Community Development Committee. We received a report that talks about turning Toronto into a tourist destination, and we should also think about keeping Toronto residents touring in our own city. Every dollar that we keep in Toronto means that we're circulating in the local economy, and that's very important. We don't need to go to Montreal to have that feeling. We can have it in Toronto. Actually, staycation is right. It's a really important way to make sure that we are lifting up our local economy. Thank you for all the work. Thank you for the mayor. I think in her first days or even before she assumed office, jumped right into this. But I really think that we also have to recognize the diligence, persistence, and attention that Councillor Fletcher has paid to this program. And I think every councillor that has robust CaféTO should be thanking her, because she's really put in the work. And working with the public service, I think we have something to look forward to next year. So thank you very much.
Well, let me add my 2 cents. It's wet and rainy, it's colder now, but there's something very special about Torontonians. When the sun is shining, when it's warm, they want to be outside. And during COVID time, the CaféTO program really literally not only saved quite a few restaurants, businesses, hired quite a few more waitresses and chefs, but also gave a lot of people that have been isolated inside to be able to come outside and still be able to connect somewhat with people. And then, of course, the first year was difficult, because when you transition from an interim program into something more permanent, it's this growing pain. And now that with a program that has clear application process, deadlines, who does what, one-stop shop, with a communication plan that is transparent, it will make life for the restaurants owners' life a lot easier and simpler. It removed that uncertainty in terms of time where they have to wait and don't know when to hire people. And it actually gives them a lot more runway and some hope that in the depth of winter in February and March, that some of them would be struggling very hard, and that is somehow, if they wait long enough, that end of April, May is going to come, and that when the sun is warmer, like when the weather is warmer, that there would be opportunity for them to open up their patios. Well, this kind of patio. So thank you for your work, and it's been a collective effort. A lot of council have been involved, a lot of staff from different departments have been involved, and I know it's not simple, but it could be now. So thank you for all of everyone's participation, especially the BIAs, because they're volunteering the effort to come and say, here are how some of the suggestions that we have for those folks that gone beyond just complaining about why it doesn't work. Many of them actually stepped up and say, this is what you can do to make it work, make the program work. I'm really grateful for their participation. So to a new CaféTO program, or revived, renewed, not so new, revived. So anyone else want to speak to it? Who is moving that motion for this? Councillor Fletcher, okay. Of the staff recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Thank you. Councillor Chang asked that the next item, the Cummer station, be put to the end of the day, so we will do so. That's what she requested. But 10.17, which is the Eglinton East Light Rail Transit, is up next. That's an exciting progress here. Helen Lee, which is the executive producer of the co-host the Next Stop podcast, as a speaker. Come on up. You have 5 minutes.
Hello? Okay, it's on. Oh my God. On. Okay, it's on, great. Well, I just want to say thank you. I thought I'd have to depute in the afternoon, so thank you for running efficient meetings. It's great to be back at City Hall for an old-fashioned in-person deputation, because I haven't been here since the before times. I see some familiar faces in the room, but for those who don't know who I am, hi. My name's Helen. I'm executive producer and co-host of a transit podcast called The Next Stop. I'm here to speak in favor of advancing the Eglinton East Light Rail Transit project. My support for the project is very personal. I was a student at the University of Toronto Scarborough from 2003 to 2008. I remember the day when City Councillor and TDC Chair Adam Giambrone came to a meeting of the Scarborough Campus Students' Union. He was there to sell us on a really cool idea from Mayor David Miller. It was called Transit City. At the time, I lived with my parents near the border of Markham and Scarborough. The 21 Brimley, 53 Steeles East, and the former Line 3 Scarborough Rapid Transit, or SRT for short, were my regular transit routes. I thought Transit City was exactly what Toronto needed: light rail transit in the underserved areas of the city. However, Mayors Rob Ford and John Tory, along with Premier Doug Ford, thought that subways were the best transit option for Scarborough. And for the next 13 years, Scarborough transit planning became political football. Today, the Scarborough subway is being built, but it's not enough. Earlier this year, the SRT was finally retired from service after it derailed. It was a sad ending to the little rapid transit line that could, and the SRT deserved better. What were the transit options when I was a student? Infrequent packed buses and the SRT. What are the current transit options for Scarborough residents? More frequent, but still packed buses. But big fan of the rapid TO bus lanes, because those are great. We need to advance the Eglinton East LRT for the future students of UTSC and Centennial College. We need to advance the Eglinton East LRT for all Scarborough residents, but especially those in Malvern, Highland Creek, West Hill, Guildwood, Woburn, Scarborough Village, and Eglinton East. I'm not going to change gears by telling you a love story. 13 years ago, I joined the fight for my city. I became a transit advocate and then a housing rights advocate. I also became a paralegal, so you could say I'm kind of a professional advocate. I love Toronto. We are one of the most vibrant and livable cities in the world. We have the best motto, diversity our strength. We are a great city because we are diverse. Because it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what language you speak, what you believe, or who you love, there will be a place for you here. To all the naysayers who disrespect Toronto, I say this: you need us. Ontario needs Toronto. Canada needs Toronto. We are essential to the province, and we are essential to the country. We are the socioeconomic engine that keeps everything else running. And we deserve the ability to control our own destiny without having to beg for money and attention from the provincial and federal governments. Toronto and the other cities across Canada are not creatures of their provinces, not anymore. If I could ask one question to all our elected representatives in Toronto, including our MPPs and MPs, it would be this: do you love this city? If the answer is not an automatic yes, then I doubt your ability to represent us. There are so many uncertainties in life, but I am certain about one thing: you fight for those you love. After 13 years of fighting for Toronto, I'm a little tired. I would like to take a bit of a break, and I can. For the first time ever, my mayor looks like me. and she loves Toronto as much as I do. For the first time ever, Toronto City Council reflects the diversity of our great city, and we are stronger for it. So Mayor Chow and members of the Executive Committee, it has been an honor and a privilege to address all of you today. I'm happy with the work that you've done so far, and I have great expectations of what you do next. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. I didn't set that up. Thank you for your deputation. Any questions to deputants? Thank you for your passion. Oh, Councillor Ainsley.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Helen. Is there anything you'd like to see added to the report as we move this forward?
Not off the top of my head. I did skim through it before the meeting today. As far as I'm concerned, just get going, right? The original proposal, I think, is now been almost 20 years, you know, since Transit City was first proposed. And so I just say, just get going, because like Scarborough residents need more rapid transit. The Scarborough subway will only serve a very small portion of Scarborough. And there are still transit riders, residents in all these underserved neighborhoods who deserve better than just buses. But again, really appreciate the additional rapid TO bus lanes. We need more of them everywhere. And don't cheap out on the construction. We don't want another Eglinton crosstown, because who knows when that will open.
Okay.
But at least like approach this with consideration, care, but also the money and the resources it needs.
And do you get much feedback from students from UTSC about your podcast? And I ask that because I know when the Pan Am Center was built across the street from UTSC, there was a levy on UTSC students to help finance and build that. But at the same time, there was a promise, there was an LRT coming, and that LRT's, the Pan Am Center is beautiful, it's well used. I know by many UTSC students, but we're still waiting for that LRT.
I'm still waiting for that LRT, and I'm not a student anymore. I don't know how many Scarborough students listen to the podcast. I'm sure some of them do. I haven't spoken to any of them directly, but I'm sure they would agree with me.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Come to the hall. Councillor, we have actually Jim Fault. Are you here? Ah, okay. Scarborough Community Renewal Organization.
Good morning, Your Worship and councillors of the Executive Committee. Glad to see you again. My name is Jim Fott, and many of you know me from my past work as a consultant that worked on environmental assessments and other policy consultations on infrastructure projects and other work across Toronto, including the original EA for this project in 2009. I worked on the team that worked on that original EA in 2009. So here we are some years later, and we're still talking about it. I'm now retired and a board member of SCRO, the Scarborough Community Renewal Organization, which some of you know of, and we are certainly looking to do some positive things for Scarborough. Working collaboratively through inspired action and learning, SCRO is a multi-stakeholder group of community volunteers seeking to renew Scarborough by advocating for economic development, better suburban planning, enhanced natural environment, social development, health promotion, arts, and culture. I'm here today to comment on the proposal in front of you from the staff report for advancing the Eglinton East LRT. After so many years of underfunding of transit in Scarborough, which has 26% of the population, by the way, of Toronto, this is going to be a game changer for Scarborough, a real game changer. The Scarborough subway extension is a good start to what's happening with transit. Fantastic. I worked on the environmental assessment on that too, and it's glad to see that the tunneling is proceeding and everything's up to sniff. The Scarborough subway extension is going to be also a game changer, but so will this project. So let's keep the ball rolling. Let's get this project final environmental assessment approved, the TPAP, and let's get on with it. So we're here to strongly support this, and much like Helen, we very much love Scarborough and we love Toronto, and we want to make sure that it can be best it can be. So move this forward, finish the TPAP, and get to the 30% design. 30% design is critical for us. Scarborough is fully engaged in the EA process so far, and we will continue to be engaged in the TPAP. One thing I want to mention, though, we want to think about renaming this project to the Scarborough LRT. Eglinton East LRT, there's only a small portion of this project that's on Eglinton. We don't want to be associated with that other Eglinton crosstown project, so we want to rename this as the Scarborough LRT. And I know there's a history with that name. Josh has a very strong history with that name, I know. So we want to make sure that, the water's gone under the bridge, history's behind us. Let's name it the Scarborough LRT. Only two things I have to comment on this report. First is a major stop is missing. It seems to be a minor thing, but it is a major thing. As you go up Morningside and get to the top of the hill, West Hill, where the high school is, you go down the hill and come up to Ellesmere, where the Pan Am Center and the UT Scarborough is. There's a major park that is very heavily used between those two stops, and that park needs an entrance. We commented on this during the environmental assessment. A councillor from Scarborough commented that this stop was needed, but somehow that it was either ignored or missed. They commented that they can't stop on a hill. We'll make that little portion where the stop has to be level. That's not a big engineering feat to do that. So that stop needs to be added. That's the only thing we really want to see added to this. My other comment is on point 4 in your staff briefing about the Scarborough, about what's happening in Scarborough for the Shepherd Avenue extension, the consultations by Metrolinx. I worked on that environmental assessment in 2009 and 10, and believe it or not, the numbers did not support a subway, and I don't think even today those numbers will support a subway on that piece of Shepherd. So we want this project to take precedence over anything that's going to happen from Metrolinx. And that's going to take a long time. They're just starting this reconsultation. I don't think anybody at Metrolinx read that environmental assessment from 2009-10 that said, this really should be an LRT. And there's a few councillors that were fully against it being an LRT for whatever reason, something like a previous mayor, I think. It's really a matter of making sure that this project proceeds, shovels in the ground, that we complete the loop back to McCowan subway station and the Scarborough subway extension and get this project done. So please move forward with the TPAP as soon as possible, and I congratulate you on the funding that you have already provided for this project. We've already been in discussions with the Associate Minister of Transportation, who's in charge of transit for the province, about this project. He wants the TPAP finished so he can make his funding announcements, and we've been in talks with the federal government as well. So we can go to the other levels of government quite easily once you get this TPAP done, so get her done. Thank you.
All right, get it done. Okay, thank you. Any questions to the deputants? No? Okay, thank you for taking the time. Councillor, anyone want to speak? Oh, of course, Deputy Mayor McKelvey and Carol. Oh, question to staff. Councillor Carol?
Yeah, just a quick question. There's a recommendation and some comments about what if it overlaps with whatever is the Shepherd subway expansion. Be prepared to make the adjustment, sort of thing. I'm wondering if that goes both ways, such that, I assume that the language is if the Scarborough subway expansion was approved and it came into where the ELRT map starts, you would just adjust the map and the subway would go as long. But can it go the other way? Could the proposal be, or if the LRT mode wanted to keep proceeding west along Shepherd so that it actually goes into the area currently contemplated as subway expansion, that turns out to be more affordable. Is that recommendation about being flexible about where the two might overlap? It could work both ways.
Through the chair to you, Councillor. As you're aware, the province is currently doing their initial business case. As part of that initial business case, they are conferring with city staff, and we will be providing input into that process to determine the best mode to connect up from the Don Mills station to McCowan and further on.
Okay, so they haven't made a decision about that, the rest of the Shepherd map.
No, not at this time, Councillor.
They were in their initial public consultation, they were sort of veiled in their language, but it seemed as if they were still contemplating either mode. So we could, advancing this means that we could actually see it help come up with a more affordable Shepherd Avenue solution.
Through the chair to you, Councillor, yes, that again, one of the things that we are doing is working with Metrolinx in the province to actually inform their initial business case as to the best solution that can be put forward on Shepherd Avenue.
Informed solution, I love that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. When is your next milestone and report back?
Through the chair to you, Councillor, at this point in time, because of the initial business case and until we see the information associated with it, at best right now we're looking at Q3, Q4 of 2024.
And what do you need from Metrolinx as soon as possible to solidify your design?
So there are a variety of different things. Again, sorry, through you, Chair, to the Councillor, there are a variety of different things. The first off is, as I said before, the initial business case, so that we understand what the implication is on the Eglinton East LRT. The second item is, and it's in the report, is the confirmation of the use of the Conlon Yards as the location for the maintenance storage facility for the Eglinton East LRT.
Do they know how far ahead we are in this design?
Through the chair to you, Councillor, yes, they do.
And if the stars aligned, what is the earliest you could break ground?
Through the chair to you, Councillor, best case would be, I would say, 2027.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The stars aligning in 2027, okay? That would be nice. So, speaking, Deputy Mayor McAuliffe.
I just want to thank city staff for their hard work on this and also make sure that we don't put the pens down at any point, given the uncertainty that we have with the province. Like, we're always going to have uncertainty with the province, and we can't let that impact our planning and our design. So I think it's great that this work will proceed, recognizing the terminus could be at the new Shepherd station at McCowan, but also recognizing that the new Shepherd line, should they build one, could go to Morningside. So we plan for both scenarios. I think that's great. This is a really important project for Eastern Scarborough, as I'm sure you'll hear Councillor Ainsley speak to as well. It is the only higher order transit that touches my ward in any way or is proposed to at any time. And we have big plans that are happening. The University of Toronto Scarborough campus is building a medical school. That's pretty cool. They have an amazing expansion that's happening. We have Malvern Mall that is being redeveloped to bring thousands and thousands of new units into our community and places for people to live, work, and play. So it's really important that we don't slow down given the uncertainty with the province. We continue to push them to let them know that we're ready, we're further ahead than they are, and that they should be hopping on board with us, as you heard Councillor Carroll alluding to earlier. This is 18 kilometers of higher order transit serving 7 priority neighborhoods, 27 plus maybe one stop if Councillor Ainsley gets his motion. This is going to be transit for 71,000 people that have never had it before. So it's a great project, and I hope everybody's supportive, and we'll all move forward together on it.
Okay. Should be done 20 years ago, but I digress. I tried to make it a point in 2014. Sorry to disappoint. I was champion. Never mind. Councillor Ainsley and Councillor Carroll.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I do have a motion that I would like to move. It's basically, it says City Council requests the Executive Director of Transit Expansion to continue to explore opportunities for a stop to be located at Morningside Park at 390 Morningside Avenue. The second deputant alluded to Morningside Park. It's actually the second largest park in the city of Toronto by area, only second to High Park. It's a very heavily used park. There's limited parking in it. The TTC has a stop at the front gates of it right now. I would like to see that replaced with an LRT station. As I said, it's a very heavily used park. It's used by a large number of people that commute to it and can't drive to it. It's in the bottom of a valley, so where the two stops are currently located for the LRT would be a long hike for any family with young children or older people to get to it. So I would like them to continue looking at a stop at this location. As I also alluded to the first deputant, when the LRT line was being looked at for financing and construction, it was being done in conjunction with the Pan Am Center that was built in 2015. U of T students at the time were promised an LRT through the campus if they would actually also enter into a partnership with the City of Toronto to build the Pan Am Center for the 2015 games, which they had a levy put on. Now I'm running into the situation of students attending UTSC. Pan Am Center heavily used, LRT still waiting. And now students joke that attended UTSC at the time when that levy was put in place, they joke with me that maybe, by the time their grandchildren are at UTSC, the LRT will be built. So, I want to thank staff for all of their continued work on this. If there's anybody at Queen's Park listening, MPPs always tell us how important the LRT is to Scarborough and that they're very important. They want to support it financially, but I don't see a check. I joke with my MP, John McKay, who's the chair of the federal caucus, when he asks me what I want, I'm like, I'd like a check for an LRT. Everybody talks about how important it is.
My needs are simple.
Where's my check, right? My needs are simple. Write me a check. And when people ask about the viability or the need for an LRT in Eastern Scarborough, we had the first rapid TO lanes that run from Kennedy Station along Eglinton, Morningside, Kingston Road, and up Morningside. The reason it was the first rapid TO lanes put in place was those lines along the same route as where the Eglinton East LRT would go are amongst the most heavily used bus lanes in the city of Toronto. They're packed all the time. We have express bus lanes that run along there. They go up to UTSC. They're packed all the time. An LRT would be used along this route. It will be well used. We need the finance. We've done our part. We've done the design work. We need the other levels of government to step up, put the money where their mouth is, and help finance this. Thank you.
Hear, hear. I no longer need to speak. Councillor Carroll.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to speak because I asked my questions about, what if we get there to McCowan and it makes more sense to just keep going that way, keep going west with this mode. Similar to Councillor Ainsley's conversation, if you talked about expanding from Don Mills Station with this mode of transport 14 years ago or 17 years ago, people would lose their minds. But now they're realizing how very long they're going to wait. And the 43-story buildings are there. But the priorities for this expansion are impossible to ignore. We do at least have that subway that can get you as far as Don Mills Station. But I think that it's important to note, I spend a lot of time on this map because, I have to go down as far as St. Clair to pick up my little basketballers. And once I pick them up, we're up and along pretty much the map of this alignment to get up to Lawrence and Morningside, where I pick up another couple of ballers, then either take them to the Pan Am Center or then we're all the way up into Malvern. And we made ourselves an assignment one day, my daughter and I, when we stopped at Lawrence and Morningside, I said, it really is dense out here. The density's already here. And so we made ourselves a promise on the way home. We were going to look at the density along this route, and we deliberately drove the alignment because we were at Lester B. Pearson in Malvern. So we drove the alignment all the way home. Took us a little bit out of our way, but we did it to count the number of apartment buildings. And it is, because we're nerds and that's what we do. and it also, there was fast food on the way for the kids. But in doing so, we started to realize that it's justified right now. You wouldn't have to build another building to justify LRT level ridership. It's there already. And so you will spur development here by building this expansion, and we need the units citywide, but there is no reason not to push as hard as we can on this expansion, because enough to make it viable is already there. From the campus and all of the high-rise buildings on the way through, along Eglinton and even along Lawrence, which makes a very short bus ride. To get yourself to rail or to transit. A huge amount of density just nearby in Lawrence. And so is there ridership argument? It's done, it's over. The only question is, as we build it, by the time it's finished construction, it's gonna be a pretty crowded line because it will spur more housing to happen out there, and there are great potential sites out there. But at Lawrence and Morningside, when you stand there and look around you, most of the density that's there now are our tenants. And our tenants at Lawrence and Morningside desperately need this thing to happen. It is the thing that will make that kid in that complex that's right at that corner on either side decide, yeah, I'm going to Scarborough UTSC. I can do it. I can get there. I can do it. I'm going to try.
Thank you. Councillor Ainsley, Highland Creek Trail is one of my go-to trail, and therefore landing it into the Morningside Park, I'm very familiar with that area. Having an extra stop there would make a lot of sense, so thank you for that motion. Are there any other, Councillor Matlow or, nope, Councillor Cole?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank the deputant. I don't know if she's still here, but appreciate her, both deputants, but I mean, the passion and the love of the city and the advocacy, that's wonderful and inspiring. I just wanted to put a few things up for consideration. It's about time the province allowed us to sell air rights over the transit station. That way we can pay for the building of this line and other lines. This is done all over the world. That's how they build the KCRC in Hong Kong. Just sold the air rights to the railway company and built the whole system. And then you get housing too. So you get money and housing, and you get the density at the stations. This is something we've got to start to talk about. We can't continue to keep begging the province and the feds to fund transit. Let us sell the air rights. Like on the Eglinton disaster, the debacle there in the so-called Eglinton Crosstown, every station has empty space over it. Every single station, except one, the Oakwood station. It's the only one that has any housing over it. That is disgraceful, that line was done with every station having empty space over it, every station. So let's start putting that on the agenda if we really want to get this built. Let us sell the air rights. The second thing is, let the TTC get back to building the transit. Right now, what's happening is that Metrolinx is poaching all of our TTC staff that is in construction and design and build, and they poach them and then pay them almost twice as much what they were getting the TTC. So we're losing, I don't know how many we've lost, all poached by Metrolinx, maybe 1,000 people over the last number of years, all poached by Metrolinx. We used to have the expertise at the TTC who built subways. The Bloor-Danforth line, the Young line. Then along came Metrolinx. You know, I was talking to a TTC project manager at a retirement party the other day. He told me he and another TTC construction manager were working, I think they're working on the York University extension to York University. He said they were told to leave the job, and because the consultant was Delcan, I think, one of them, they were replaced by 80 consultants. 80 consultants to replace 2 TTC construction engineers. Transit construction in Toronto is becoming a lifelong pension boondoggle for consultants. That's who we're paying. Pension boondoggle for Metrolinx consultants. People coming in from all over the world, paid huge salaries to do what? Well, look what they've done, the disaster on the Eglinton Crosstown. 13 years, $13.3 billion spent. The CEO, another consultant that came in from the UK, wherever he came from, he can't figure out what's wrong. He has press conferences saying, well, we're having a press conference, but I've got nothing to say. What's wrong with, why can't you finish the job? Well, we're looking at it. When is it going to be done? Well, we'll announce something about something in 6 months. This is the disaster of transit construction in Toronto. It's basically, we've lost control of it, and we put it in the hands of these consultants that are not accountable to anyone. And so if you want this important line built, we better start to wake up and change the way we build, finance transit construction, or else we're going to be waiting, you know, for this project. If you think Metrolinx can do this, you're dreaming. First of all, they say they don't have the money, it's not their priority. And then they'll say, oh, well, we got to bring in all these consultants to do what? So anyways, perhaps there needs to be a motion or something done here to basically get the TTC back in the business of building and end the consultants' boondoggle at Metrolinx. If you really want this done, it should be done. We'll never get it done the way things are right now. Thank you.
Well said, Deputy Mayor. You see no other speaker. The motion in front of us, Councillor Ainsley amendment. All those in favor of that amendment post, which is the Morningside, do you have it? Do you want to post it? It's adding a, there you go. Located in Morningside Park. Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carry, and the main motion. All those in favor, opposed, carry, thank you. 2 quick items, open data centralization policy review, 10.18, Ingrid Burde. She's online. You're online. You have 5 minutes.
Hello, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen if possible. 1, 2. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. So good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to the Executive Committee on open data centralization and policy. So, my name is Ingrid Boudet. I live in Ward 4, and I suffer from health impacts from vehicle noise, also known as vanity noise. I'm the founder of No More Noise Toronto to advocate for a better sounding Toronto through the Noise Bylaw review, which is ongoing right now. And we're working to remove emotion from the noise discussion and focusing on data for good decision-making. My story as it relates to this is that I started going to Civic Tech Toronto about 2 years ago, and I met a lovely group of people that really care deeply about the city and want to use their talents for good. I've been learning also how the city collects noise complaints from the public and feel that the resulting data isn't an accurate representation of the problem. I also started researching noise and found out that the heat maps showing the sound level averages, or LEQ, didn't tell the whole story. So this has created 2 data sets that could be good candidates for citizen curated data. And if you'd like to know more, my story is actually on the Knowledge Center of the Open Data Portal called Measuring Sound from the Bedroom Window. I created, the first data set is the Not 311 Noise Report, and I called it that because I wanted to make people, I wanted to be clear that this is an alternate report, not a replacement for 311. And this report takes all noise reports all the time, which 311 does not. It's crowdsourced, it's hosted on Esri servers, and there's no confidential information gathered. You can see from the image that we are getting close to 8,500 noise reports. And from the 2 graphs on the bottom, you can see the one on the left, that large green slice is noise source by percentage, and that is moving vehicle noise, is the top complaint of over 80% of people in Toronto. The second data set is the sound level measurements that I've been taking for over 2 years from my home and other people's homes across Toronto. This data is allowing me to count the number of noise spikes that people are subjected to, and I'm able to estimate exposure levels with data and spatial analysis. I created these 2 collection methods to complement the data that's already being collected in the hopes that the city and others would use it. While I have your attention, noise is a global health issue. And from the Toronto Public Health Report in 2017, How Loud is Too Loud, over 92% of residents are over the World Health Organization recommended level of 45 decibels for restorative, restful sleep. Many of us are suffering both physical and mental health impacts, and the list you can see there. It needs to be addressed as a public health issue. So back to the city. The city can't be everywhere all the time. And I think by creating a space for the tech community to contribute, you access a talented and motivated group of individuals and organizations. This can help provide contextual data that can augment what you already collect. It may aid in understanding the problems, identifying solutions, and mitigating health impacts. There are plenty of citizen-curated data sets already out there, and this would give them additional life and purpose. When people ask me, why should I contribute to a data set? They ask me to what end? And if I can say that the city is looking at this data for decisions, that gives them additional purpose and life. And this would stimulate, I believe, a new level of engagement and advocacy with the residents of Toronto. So there's always risks when you're collecting data, and I believe these risks are well known and can be mitigated through good processes. How you can mitigate those is also by developing relationships with trusted groups in the community. Civic Tech Toronto is one of those. And you can collaborate to create workflows and guidelines that support good data management. And I would also suggest bringing in corporate partners to support and fund. So the rewards that you would get from creating and hosting citizen curated data sets is that you would have better data for better decision making. And by accepting crowdsourced data sets, you're giving others a way to make their voice heard. This is more inclusive. I have learned that many people do not want to share their name. They do not want to necessarily show up to events or complete city surveys. So this is a way to be more inclusive. When the information is more accessible, you're working towards equity and equality. And by improving the delivery of services, you rebuild public trust and engagement. When it comes to noise complaints, many people do not believe that the city is actually hearing what they have to say. So I hope that you support this motion. I learned that the City of Toronto is one of the Canadian pioneers of municipal open data. So congratulations on that.
Ingrid, your time is up. Thank you so much for your deputation. Okay, thank you. Councillor Ainsley, you want to move motion?
I have questions of staff.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. Thank you. So to staff I want to thank you for the report and the ongoing work being done on this. I wanted to ask about some of the data sets. So we're currently collecting 261 data sets, or we have collected that. Is there a goal for how many data sets you envision for the City of Toronto in the data portal? is it left up to staff in different departments to contribute a data set, or do you actively go to a department and say, you know, like transportation, and say, you know, other municipalities are putting data sets in on, you know, bench locations throughout the city along avenues? Like, how do the data sets get established?
Through the chair. The data sets are established through key reports and areas where we feel there's decision-making required. So when the program was set up, it really was aimed at putting foundation in place so we have open data available to the public as well as to everybody around the city to be able to make decisions as well as take action. So the way that we've developed the data set so far is based on critical files, directives, get key data into open data, and we continue to work through what that prioritization is and put as many data sets as we can up on the portal.
Okay, so are you proactively going to other divisions and saying, you know, based on our experience in other municipalities, I'll use New York City, for example, this is something you should be looking at publishing as a data set?
Through the chair, yes, we are. In fact, we were recognized earlier this year as globally recognized as one of the top 3 out of 50 cities around the world on our use of data and our open data policies and how we are using it to resolve critical civic issues.
Okay, and then in part of the report, it mentions about you're going to be adding another FTE in the department. How do you, is one person enough in your opinion, or is this like ramping up? Because I look at the data sets, for example, that are on file. Some of them haven't been updated since 2011, like you know, some I think would be very important, relevant today. The shelter profile information, the last time it was updated was December 31st, 2011.
So through the chair, in fact, our report, maybe it wasn't as clear, Councillor, we actually have requested 5 FTE for next year. There are 5 areas that we're tackling. So one is, like you said, some of our data sets are really old. Our policy is actually quite old. So we are looking to do an open data policy refresh, which will incorporate some new technologies. You know, some of what we heard, which is crowdsourcing data, but also sensors, the use of data for AI, et cetera. So we are looking to do a refresh. The second area is that we are looking at is expanding our capacity to put more data sets on the portal. This is through automation tools and really streamlining our process so that we can ingest more than we ingest today. And we are looking, you know, we're hoping that we will, you know, as an outcome is significantly increase our ability to take on more data sets and the volume that we have in our portal.
Okay, and then my next question through your mayor. There's other municipalities, I'm going to use New York City, for example, they have so it talks about compliance, and the compliance seems to be very regular, like looking at the regulatory framework and not so much at city agencies or corporations submitting data sets. And I looked at New York City, they have an annual compliance plan that talks about how they engage different departments to promoting open data sets that they can put on. Is when you talk about compliance, is that something that we should be doing to proactively engage? And we see how different departments in New York City are engaging residents around data sets as well.
Through the chair, so I think the difference between New York City and the City of Toronto is New York City has a bylaw that defines data sets, engagement, compliance. We are looking to accomplish the same through this refresh of our open data policy and ensuring we've got engagement across the divisions and the ABCs in compliance.
Okay, and then my last question, Madam Mayor, I wanted to ask on page 5 of the report, and it talks about the Toronto Housing Data Hub that was established in March 2023. Have we had any feedback from other jurisdictions around having that hub, or feedback from other jurisdictions or other levels of government about it? Because it seems to me it's a great it's an amazing hub. Maybe we need to promote it more.
Yeah, through the chair, we haven't had any direct feedback from the public, although we are having internal discussions through the various housing files as how we can improve our end-to-end data sets and what we can make available through open data.
Okay, all right, thank you. Those are my questions, Madam Mayor.
I actually have one. Councilor Carroll first? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, it's along the lines of what the deputant was talking about, but, I understand the problem with uploading crowdsourced stuff, but at the very least, in the conversations with divisions, can we get to the point where the data points go well beyond, for instance, for frontline service divisions, it goes well beyond just what we know of complaints from 311. Are we gathering, requests that come directly to divisions? Are we sure of our 311 data? Are we really doing everything we can to make sure that the divisions themselves are really mining to make sure that they're giving a true picture?
Through the chair, I think our focus has really been on collecting that data and making it available. It's a good question in terms of how we can now leverage that. Now that we've made really good progress on the data we have in open data, we can start to look at, is there a different way for us to make decisions? Crowdsourcing is a great opportunity. We do, I think the data that the deputant shared, we do link to her research and the data that she's provided. So it's there and we're linking to it. Now, I think the next step is what do we do with that and how do we make sure we're incorporating that into the decisions we're making?
Right. You don't want to necessarily blend it all because what we're saying to people is this is our data. And so you don't really have as much control of the stuff outside. But is the conversation with divisions, does it start with how many points of data are there? Where do requests come to you? Where do complaints come to you? So that it's all making it into the data set?
Through the chair, I don't know that I have the answer to that question. What I can tell you, though, is just from a city perspective, we do need to develop an enterprise data strategy. I think what's happening is the divisions are creating and then using data that's available to them to make the best decisions possible. But I do think we need to take a look at what the enterprise strategy looks like, number one. And then two, is there crowdsourced data that we would use as a litmus test of are we moving the needle?
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to take the rest offline. I have some thoughts. Thanks.
Councilor Malik.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the report, and a number of the questions were raised. I do want to just point to one part of the report. In the report, it states that we have, quote, a commitment to being open by default while ensuring that the security obligations are taken into account and the privacy obligations are complied with. As we've seen recently, some unfortunate incidents with our own, within the city, as well as private companies and big businesses, that the security concerns, especially for municipalities and big institutions, is on the rise, and it's a major disruptor, especially when we are delivering such important supports and services. And privacy concerns, I think, have to be top of mind when we are talking about how we move forward, and we're balancing that openness with the security and protections that we need. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you're doing to ensure that this doesn't become an issue for us.
Through the chair, it is certainly a consideration in what data we're putting on the portal. I can speak to, we've received data sets where there are staff names or information that we would not want to have published. And the team is scrubbing that out before we put anything up on the portal. We haven't necessarily automated it yet because we need comfort in the tools that we have, that we are scrubbing out our private and secure data. So it's absolutely a consideration, and we need to balance that with the speed at which we want to get data out there and making sure that we are protecting our data.
Yeah, and so I'd like to hear more about what is being done to protect us from a breach, right? I think that it's the quality of the data, but also in the process of it. I think that's the important piece that keeps, emerging and has to be the cautionary tale for us.
Through the chair, so we work very closely with the CISO on all of our practices in terms of how we protect our data, transport our data, whether it's traveling between systems or people or at rest. So we have very good policies in place with the CISO. In fact, the CISO is there to define policy, threat management, and the technology team implements those practices and policies. So we work very closely and hand in hand in ensuring that it's protected.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not, Councillor Ainsley, you're going to move the report?
I have an amendment.
Okay, please do. Why am I not surprised?
I don't want to disappoint you, Councillor Carroll. So I have it's kind of technical in nature. The first part of it is just, and I want to begin by thanking staff for all of their hard work on the open data in the City of Toronto. We've come a long way since 2011 and the work we've done around open data and the data portal. So the first part of my motion is basically just saying, asking for the open data portal, open data policy, open data master plan, our digital infrastructure framework, and the report that's before us today just to be linked on the open data portal homepage. So it's clear. I don't always think, I'll say as Canadians compared to a lot of jurisdictions, I don't think we brag enough about what we do around open data compared to many jurisdictions. I'd like these reports to be clear on the open data portal page. And then the second part, it's really around an annual open data compliance plan that has a number of different components. We have 261 data sets, which is a lot of data sets for a Canadian jurisdiction, but very small compared to a number of other jurisdictions around the world. So, it's great to be the leading municipality in Canada. I think we need to raise the bar and start showing other jurisdictions what we can do, and even promoting open data around a number of departments and corporations, what can be done to promote it. And I think we can do that through an open data compliance plan. So I'm asking staff to look at that as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership on this. Seeing no other questions and speaking, all those in favor of this amendment and the main motion, opposed, carry, thank you. We have one more item before the one that have quite a few deputants. Etobicoke coat of arms display in the Etobicoke Civic Center. One speaker, Adam Rogers. Online. 5 minutes?
Yes, hello. Okay, good to go? Yeah, all right. So just keep this short and to the point. I think it's based on the report that's been provided. I think it makes sense for us to start the transition away from the coat of arms as listed. Honestly, the one thing I think we're missing, and I was, I guess, a little surprised, is we don't seem to have any talk of a transition to a new coat of arms of any nature. I think that is something that should be represented, especially because in light of the fact we're going to have a brand new Etobicoke Civic Center. So what better way to start that off but with a new coat of arms of some sort? My personal preference, and I think others might agree in this, would be to maybe partner with the TDSB and the TCDSB to make a sort of contest for students to design a new coat of arms for Etobicoke. I think that, obviously that's up for feasibility with staff to decide that, of course, and I'll let council decide if that's the right way. But I think having our students design a new coat of arms that will then be shown prominently on the new Etobicoke Civic Center is really a great way to transition from our previous coat of arms that, as is being pointed out, is perhaps not in line with the times, to say the least. So again, I'll just keep it short. I think we should start this transition, and then we should make a proper contest through in a partnership with the TDSB and TCDSB for our students to design a new coat of arms that will be then displayed within the new Etobicoke Civic Center. I'm going to mute myself. If there's no questions, you can just end it there.
Thank you. Any questions, suggestion? Councillor Holiday. Questions to the deputant?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Adam, what concerns do you have with the coat of arms?
I mean, personally, by viewing it, I don't want to go into too great details because I'm not a member of the group that is represented. But based on looking at this, I believe it is tends to reflect a certain stereotype that I'm sure the staff perhaps could elaborate on, but I do think that it does seem to represent a sort of stereotypical representation of certain groups.
Which of the bearers, on the right or the left? Could you just help me? I'm trying to gauge.
In front of me, but I believe it's the left, and I believe it's the word underneath it as well, is which I think is. And then you combine that with the word on the right. The two words in question are tradition and progress. I think it presents a representation of, in a way that I think others would probably agree. And again, I'm not representative of the group in question, but at least that's my reading of it.
So do you think the words are connected to the bearers above?
I think it could be easily inferred.
Okay.
I don't know if that was the intention, but I think it can be easily inferred.
So to play it back, you're not happy with the image of the individual on the left, and you have some concerns with the words and the images.
Yes.
Okay.
And which is why I would suggest that if we just do decide to change, I think it's good to have a contest to replace it with something maybe in line with tradition and our new Etobicoke.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Any other question to the deputant? If not, question to staff? Yeah, Councillor Holiday and then Deputy Mayor Molly.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor Chow. I guess my first question is to the city manager. I see a decision has been made to remove the coats of arms at the Etobicoke Civic Center. What steps were taken to review the details and the actual components in the coat of arms itself?
So through the mayor, this is part of broad work that's happening across the city in a number of places. So we've reviewed a number of images and names that are a part of either city business or people that are partnered with city business. So the review of this coat of arms was done through that lens. We have a team of people looking at it. And then we work with folks from our Indigenous community as well as other experts in terms of imagery to understand what it is that is offensive. In this case, I think it's also important to note that we have, for the last number of years, received a number of complaints, both from staff and the community about the imagery.
Did anyone review the blazon or attempt to access the source information in the city archives?
Through the mayor, maybe I'll turn that to members of our team who are somewhere here. Is protocol going to answer that? Yeah.
I can ask another one in the meantime if we want.
Richard's here. He's just getting to a microphone.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, we did review all of the material that is in the files, in the archives, from the decision that was made in the 1970s in Etobicoke.
When was the material reviewed?
It was reviewed in the fall of 2017 and 2018.
Okay. And did anyone seek advice on heraldry or attempt to contact the creators or the decision makers that were in place when the coat of arms was established?
We have looked into the artist. We have not been able to contact her. We have had general discussions with officials in that field.
And do we know, what the different coats of arms parts are? Can that be described to the committee? The different elements, the basic elements?
Yes, the parts of a coat of arms include the supporters, which in this case include an Indigenous figure and another figure. It includes a motto, it includes a shield, it includes a crest above it. Coats of arms can include other items, but this particular one, to my knowledge, does not.
Is there anything terribly unique about this coat of arms? Obviously it's unique to the municipality, but the use of mottos, Indigenous supporters, the various elements, these aren't unique in Canada or municipalities in general, are they?
Based on my knowledge of this, I would say that many municipalities throughout Canada have used human figures. Others use animals. The City of Toronto coat of arms, for example. 3 of them, we also have found another location where a previous symbol that was used by Etobicoke, which also includes an Indigenous figure, exists as well. We're on an ongoing basis trying to determine the extent of the depiction of this coat of arms. We haven't come up with any more in the last few months.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know the time, but it must be close.
Yep, I'm sorry. Thank you for your questions. Councilor Molly?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to staff for this report. I wanted to just ask a couple quick ones related to some notes in here around the complaints process. How would sharing a list of complaints compromise the confidentiality of our process? Was the original request?
So through the mayor, in talking with people in equity and others, we have to be careful not to go into areas where we could be identifying people by sharing the results of the complaints. And so it was felt that because we wouldn't be able to share all of them, maybe some could be anonymized, but that might be a bridge too far. So we generally don't do that, but we did review the volume, and it has been a number over a number of years.
Thank you. And what impact would this have on any staff who would come forward confidentially to make a complaint?
Through the mayor, the impact of making the complaints known, it diminishes the ability of people to feel comfortable coming forward with concerns and complaints. So we felt it was important to share that this was an accelerated piece of work, because I think it's important to note that there are other symbols we're looking at and things. This was accelerated based on the fact that this has been identified by staff and some members of the public. And so that had us take a look at it a little earlier than some other things that were happening. But we don't want to have people feel that by raising a complaint, it may end up in a report, it may end up public, and therefore be traced back to the sources of who was complaining.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. That's very helpful.
Councilor Bravo, you had a question?
Chair, Madam Mayor, through you to the City Manager, is it accurate that the City of Toronto adopted a reconciliation action plan in 2022-2023?
We did.
Okay. Is it accurate that the first line of the vision is that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples' worldview, cultures, and ways of life hold a respected, celebrated, prominent, and distinctive place in Toronto?
Through the mayor, absolutely.
So when we, at the beginning of every meeting, do a land acknowledgement, we name Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Wendat peoples, Mississaugas of the Credit, and we talk about people living on this land right now. Land acknowledgements, would you agree, are actually an intention to practice and live out our obligations to First Nations, Inuit and Métis people and people who have lived on these lands ancestrally?
So through the mayor, absolutely, again, I think that's actually the key to it. It is not a pro forma opening statement, but it is actually it is both an acknowledgement, which we should do, but also it's a call to action. And that's why, the city of Toronto, along with many other communities, have moved forward on developing the action plans like the one you see in this city.
As far as you're aware, is this, the images that are placed in as signifiers of the power of municipalities, is this something that is being assessed and reviewed in other municipalities in this country in relation to reconciliation agenda and meeting the obligations that we have to the First Peoples of this land?
Through the mayor, yes, it's not unique to Toronto that this work is occurring.
And the idea of progress in itself, I think, perhaps I'll save that for my comments. Thank you.
So you have a question?
I do. Through emeritus staff, I wanted to ask on page 3, it talks about commemorating the former Etobicoke coat of arms. It says exploring possible exhibits and opportunities to recognize and commemorate the former coat of arms and history of Etobicoke. And so this was brought to my attention by the Indigenous community in my ward, which is the second largest in the city of Toronto, and they're quite, they're insulted by the coat of arms that was in Etobicoke, and they're very worried that they support taking it down, but then it talks about commemorating it, and they're worried about that and what that means and entails.
So through the mayor, and I'll ask Richard to chime in as well, but through the mayor, so there's always a balance of how we also provide some context to the images or the words within reason. So we try and find ways that we can recognize the things that have occurred over the history of this city and this community, while also removing the images from places of prominence that may cause more harm. But I'll let Richard describe what that process would be, so it's not felt by some that this is a way of showcasing it in as big a way, in a different way. So Richard, maybe a couple of words on this.
Through the mayor to the city manager and to the councillor. We have had some initial discussions with Economic Development and Culture and the History Museum area, because the intention would be that this particular depiction of the Etobicoke coat of arms would revert to the history museums as an item. There are other items that have been put into that kind of storage situation until there's time for an exhibit where there, as the city manager has mentioned, the context or further information could be provided as to the symbols, what they were intended to, or what they actually represent, how they have been interpreted by people, some of the concerns that have been expressed. So we would be working with history, and I don't know if there's anyone here from that area that would like to speak to that as well.
Through the chair to you, Councillor. EDC would accept the coat of arms into its collection stored on Atlantic Avenue, and as Richard details, bring out for public interpretation, contextualized at appropriate points within an exhibit. Nothing of that nature is planned right now.
Thank you.
Any other question? No? Speaking on the item, Councillor Holyday and Councillor Molly. Sure.
I did bring a few pictures, so if somebody could help turn this thing on here.
Can tech folks provide assistance?
Try that. Okay, if I may begin. So Indigenous symbols used are nothing new and they're nothing old. Here's an example I snapped this morning of Nathan Phillips Square, which contains Indigenous references. But it seems in the city of Etobicoke, a complaint was made. So there's the council chamber for those that haven't been there, and there's indeed a coat of arms on top of that, which contains an Indigenous person and a non-Indigenous person, and a scroll across the bottom that says Tradition, Etobicoke Progress. And of course, here's the second instance of it, a transom above a courtroom, a boardroom. If you look around Etobicoke, like Kipling Station, you'll find it on the wall. There should be no surprise. You'll find it in other places like, there's the mayor's chain of office, right on the chain of office. So why is this important? Well, there have been complaints made, and there's two flavors of complaints. The first is about the Indigenous character on the coat of arms. And so, I'll hold up an example from somewhere else. This is Chief Wahoo that no longer represents the Cleveland Indians. In fact, they've been renamed. So it's a symbol that has been judged and removed. But here's a second symbol that has not, which is Chief Blackhawk. So it's about trying to understand how society feels about the two symbols. But there's another element, of course, which was the coat of arms itself and the makeup. So you can go to the Governor General's website of Canada and you can learn about the different parts of the coats of arms, including the crest, the arms itself, the supporter, the motto across the bottom. You can also go to the archives and you can look at some of the source material. I actually got to go there. I got to wear white gloves to go through all of this stuff and find the original rendition of it. And there, of course, you will find a rationale for why it was created, what the different elements mean, and I can certainly circulate this later on. And it certainly talks about what the supporters are there for and who they are, and you'll find out it's actually a tienne brûlée on the right-hand side. So one of the concerns, of course, is that, the words are somehow linked to the supporters, but if you find the source sketch, the original one, you'll see that the motto was not even filled out. This is going back, this piece of paper, the original is 46 years old, and you'll see different versions of it, different versions of the various characters. And then you can look and see where they got the ideas from about Etienne Brûlé. This was a telephone directory, and maybe where they got the idea from about who the individual was that's actually on the coat of arms. You can find out that that's an Ojibwe chief. So, is this unique? It certainly isn't. This is Wetaskiwin, Alberta. The motto, I wish for peace, prepare for war. Again, I don't know that the bottom lines up, I wish for peace, prepare for war, but if that's not a big enough location, we can always look at, the province of Nova Scotia and their use of an Indigenous symbolism in their coat of arms. Or how about the province of Newfoundland? Maybe the town of Brantford, Ontario. Maybe Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and on and on and on. So these are located with prevalence all across Canada. But I did come across one really interesting specimen here. And if you don't believe me that the scrolls don't necessarily line up to the bearers, here's a prime example. So here we have an Indigenous bearer. You have somebody that's, has this colonial shout out with a Union Jack on there, industry, intelligence, integrity. Does anybody know this coat of arms? Come on. Nobody knows the coat of arms? What if I showed you this picture? That's literally in the courthouse across the street. How about this one? The same coat of arms, just an older version of it. I snapped the picture this morning, which is, of course, in Union Station. And of course, you just have to go back to the chain of office. And there it is on this side. So the point I want to leave you with is that I don't know if complaints have been raised about these particular ones, but here you have a history Etobicoke tried to point out with Etienne Brûlé on one side, and you have the municipality in the city of Toronto, the former municipality, that actually has an Ojibwe name in its title. trying to honor some of the history of the land in its coat of arms, and here we are putting it away. I just think it's bigger than the small report that's here, and I think decisions like this belong with council as opposed to staff. So I hope we walk through it carefully, understanding the breadth of the decision. And what I'll put to you is I really hope this is not just about the coat of arms. I hope it's about the coat of arms and not about the word Etobicoke beneath it. Because I think people of Etobicoke are proud of their history and they're concerned about these sorts of decisions. We want to make sure that we get it right. So with a little bit of that information, I hope you make a wise decision on the committee. The least I could do was go to the archives and pull out some of the source material to try to figure out all of the meaning behind this and whether or not some of the assertions about the coat of arms are true or not. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know I've gone over a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Holiday. There might be councillors who want to ask you questions, but hang tight. It being 12:30. Sorry. Yeah, of course. Question to staff, but this being 12:30, we could do two different things. This item is one, okay? The second one is the probably 2 minutes one about awards, continuity awards, okay? And then the next one after is the last one is Councillor Chang's with 7 speaker.
Sir, can I just point of order? So only 5 of them are here, and this is, for many of them, the first time they've ever deputed, and we're going to lose some soon. So if there's any way to extend, I'd greatly appreciate the consideration.
So the question is, are you folks okay to extend beyond 12:30? So the first motion, extend this item to finish this item, okay? And then the next motion would be to extend and to include Councillor Chang's item, okay? All right, so motion number 1, moved by Councillor Bravo to finish this item. All those in favor, opposed, carry, thank you. Motion 2, Councillor Morley moving to finish the agenda, which includes Councillor Chang's deputants, so that they don't, move whatever. So on that motion that you moved, and if people want to bring food in while, people are talking, it's okay, you don't mind. All those in favor of extending past the lunch to finish the entire agenda? All right, approved, carry, thank you. On this item, Councillor Morley, you are asking a question or you want to speak?
To speak. We
Staff,
went through
okay,
the questions already.
anyone needs to ask question to staff? Any more? Okay, we already done that. Sorry. Pardon me. Councillor Morley first or?
Councillor Bravo can go first.
Councillor Bravo first?
Thank
Okay,
you.
go for it.
I first want to apologize to people for, I don't think it's appropriate for the display of symbols which have been found to be hurtful by Indigenous people. And I don't think it's necessary for this discussion. So that's number 1. Number 2, I suggest that every councillor in the City of Toronto read the Chapter 1 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report. It's absolutely essential for us to understand what kind of obligations we bring into this place. The relationship of nation to nation, which has been established in Canada with the adoption of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, actually hold us accountable to a very high standard as people in government. Whether it's a municipal government or not, UNDRIP is the law of the land, and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report should be guiding our work. The City of Toronto has done excellent work to adopt a reconciliation plan just in the last year. The plan's number 1 point of vision is that we have obligations to Indigenous people. To compare symbols that have been found to be hurtful that were made without Indigenous people without their participation, without naming their nation, without understanding their context, without valuing their history, the profound history on this land, is not the same as the medicine wheel that's outside of the City of Toronto, which was done in relationship with Indigenous people. So I think that conflating those two is really problematic, and I wasn't prepared to speak, and I wasn't planning to speak, but I think that these kind of conversations where we debate the essential rights of people are not befitting of this committee, honestly. We have to progress. If you believe in progress, we have to meet our obligations. We don't need to litigate these things by the individual former amalgamated cities. We are one city with one policy that was adopted by this council. And we have obligations to people, whether it's one person or a million people. I don't think it's an issue of whether complaints were made. I think it's an issue of actually meeting our obligations as we've set them out for ourselves. It's particularly true in a place where I sat last year, or earlier this year, during the budget process, and people came to depute. The public comes into that place, into that chamber, to share its views. And any single, even if it's one person that feels that they don't belong because of what they're seeing behind the speaker's chair, I think it's a really fundamentally problematic. And I just think that we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard here, and reconciliation with the First Peoples of this land is an obligation that some of us take very seriously. I don't wish to debate this. I think that we have a policy, let's live it, and let's meet what we owe.
Councillor Molly?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. And thank you to my colleague, Councillor Bravo, for her comments. I agree with them wholeheartedly. And while I appreciate, the interest in this and the opportunity for us to have a discussion and hold space for staff to really validate and underline the importance of the work and commitments that we have made as a city, I think, this report is bigger, or this issue is bigger than this report, and our obligations are overdue and plentiful. And so for us to look back on history and times when we were making decisions without the inclusion of communities, representing communities in ways that did not have their consent, and continue to perpetuate a narrative through imagery, through words. We look at the inequality in our society. We look at outcomes for people in our society. And our history, our choices, our decisions are directly linked to the world we live in today. And if we hope to live in a better world, as my colleague mentioned, we really do need to take these commitments to reconciliation, to truth, to justice for people, for society, very seriously. We need to walk in a good way, as we've all committed to do. I'm really proud of our staff for shepherding this work and for moving forward with the removal of this symbol, which is harmful. It is triggering for many individuals who have experienced the harmful, painful, violent, and oppressive history that we don't like to talk about in our country, but is a reality. Until we started uncovering unmarked graves of children in our nation, we really weren't holding space for people to unpack the harms and the trauma. But I remember being very struck, and during my time at council before I was privileged to be sitting around this table, and looking at a statistic that pointed to 89.5% of Indigenous identifying people in the city of Toronto were living in poverty. When we think about and understand our history, our words, and the images that we choose to depict without having fulsome context and holding space for those impacted to have a voice and to participate, we are not meeting our obligations. And so while I think it's been an important exercise for us to have this conversation, I look forward to the support of my colleagues to move forward with the removal of this symbol, to move forward with support for our colleagues in the various departments who are leading this work, and to continue to do better, to walk in a good way, and make sure people feel included, seen, and respected as part of their city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Does anybody else want to speak on this item? did you want a recorded vote?
Yes, please.
Thank you. The motion in front of us. And I assume Deputy Mayor Molly, you're moving it. And did you want to post the motion, please? It's really a receive. Do you want to, why, do you want to move the motion that the coat of arms?
Yeah, we got it. We put it up.
You got it? It's only for receiver information. It's over it. You don't need to do anymore. Okay. All those in favor, Councillor Perks and Deputy Mayor Morley, McKelvey, and Councillor Matlow, Fletcher, Carroll, Bravo, Ainsley, Deputy Mayor Malik. Ciao. Thank you. All those opposed? Carry. All right. A quick, that's the establishment of Toronto Champion Award as an annual program. Basically, we provide awards during COVID time, and we're continuing it. It's good to award people that contribute. All those in favor of staff recommendations, opposed, carry. Thank you. Councillor Chang, thank you for being so patient. We have a few deputants. The first one is Salini Sethi at the Bayview Cummer Neighborhood Association. If you want John Melinti, who's on, would be the next one. And then Irish Sarashkin, William Palm, and Paul Honus. Okay? I'm just providing you with advance notice. Salimi, are you there? Sethi? No, Mr. Sethi? I'm afraid, let me try another one. Then Arash Sarinkian, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I can.
Okay.
No.
5 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. I just want to bring up 2 points. One, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Arash, and I'm a member of the Professional Engineers of Ontario, and I have about 20 years of experience in the transportation and signaling industry. And I've worked in different capacities as technical deployment leadership as well as project management. I want to bring up 1 point specifically for the Cummer station, and that's the point of building now rather than later. And I say this because I am right now in other parts of the world dealing with a situation where the other transportation ministries are thinking of adding stations to existing lines, which ups the cost by 5 to 10 times. So if we have the opportunity to build now when the line is still not built yet, then we should take that opportunity. Not only because, again, it's going to be expensive, it's more like the density in that region, in Cummer region, will continue to grow. It's not going to go away. And the other point I want to mention is going back to the stepping back and looking at the essence of transportation. We're trying to provide, or we were trying to also accommodate for people with a limited mobility. And one thing to mention is Cummer and Willowdale. That facility has a lot of patients that could take advantage of the Cummer station, which is going to be close to that facility. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Shalini, I believe you're here now on video. There you are. You have 5 minutes? Yeah, you need to unmute yourself. Lower left-hand corner.
Oh, yes.
You got it.
Yes, I got it. I got it. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to represent Bayview Cummer Neighborhood Association, and I would like to first thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak in support of the proposed Cummer station. As you all may know, that the City of Toronto's vision for the future is where its residents' preferred mode of transport is public transit, walking, and biking versus using cars. It is also evident in the Yonge North Secondary Plan, which seeks to transform our neighborhood into a transit-supportive urban environment. Significant development activity is already occurring around Yonge and Cummer, with over 7,900 approved residential units at various stages of the development. These proposed sites, as you also may know, will not provide corresponding number of parking spots for its future residents. Thus, the residents of the future will be relying on public transport to get to work and to take their kids to the activities. In addition, the population within the 500 meter of the proposed station, Cummer Station, is projected to triple in next 25 years. Lastly, with over 18 buildings proposed to be built at Yonge and Steeles intersection, and with existing Finch Station already bursting at its seams, as it also acts as a terminal for YRT and GO bus transit, it is imperative that we have a long-term vision for the future of this neighborhood. I would like to request you all to support building a station at Yonge and Cummer to meet the future needs of our neighborhood and to take the pressure off the existing Finch Station and the proposed Steeles station while we still can. Thank you so much.
Thank you. William Pam, are you here? No, he's also virtual. William? After William, John? Yes, we could hear you.
Okay, sorry, I'm actually in my school right now. All right, so here's the best view you'll get of me. So hi, my name is William Pan. I'm currently a second-year civil engineering student, and I've lived in Willowdale all my life. I'm very privileged to live in a vibrant and diverse community that has access to quality rapid transit. And instead of my parents driving me to extracurriculars like swimming, for example, I've been able to quickly access services I need, all thanks to Line 1. And this was all because of an extension of Line 1 that happened before my parents were born, actually, to Finch. And this extension back in the 70s served as a catalyst for transit-oriented development along with the North Secondary Plan. And now if you walk on Yonge Street, it's dotted with cranes and bringing thousands of new residents to Willowdale. In 2022, the city approved the Yonge North Secondary Plan, and it created a framework for a more ambitious transit-oriented corridor from Finch to Steeles, rivaling that of Norfolk Center. And to date, there's 10 active developments, a massive 2-story community center that's going to be built, the 175 Cummer Modular Housing Project, and a brand new grocery store, all within a 5-minute walk from Yonge and Cummer. And thousands of new Willowdalers will be starting to move in by spring of next year, and more development is underway to radically transform this area. It's abundantly clear that a Cummer station is needed to support the rapid development in this corridor. New development applications have also been approved with less parking and more density in anticipation of a Cummer station. Metrolinx's initial business case highlighted that in comparison to Royal Orchard and Park stations, Cummer Station's catchment area is already zoned as mixed-use high density, with developments already underway. It's also, I find, very silly that the tunnel boring machine extraction shaft will already be dug at Cummer, and the distance between Cummer and Finch is that of Norfolk Center and Shepherd. So Metrolinx is going to build a hole at Yonge and Cummer and then fill it up when they could just put a station there. Willowdale's existing road infrastructure cannot handle the influx of new cars new development may bring, especially considering Yonge is used as a throughway to York region. And a Cummer station is needed to connect the people of Willowdale. It is imperative that the City of Toronto advocate for a Cummer station to provide not just Willowdalers, but Torontonians who will literally be subsidizing the cost of this multi-billion-dollar extension when it opens in 2030. It's just unfair that York Region, which didn't approve similar density, which most likely won't be paying for the operating costs of the TTC, will be getting a subway to a golf course, while Torontonians will continue to struggle to move around a congested city. Willsdale has proven time and time again that urbanization and transit-oriented development has improved the lives of many by removing cars off the road and making it easier to get around. We pioneer transit-oriented development, setting the framework for how future city centers will look across the region. We exemplify how suburbs can quickly grow into sustainable and vibrant communities. In the midst of a climate and housing crisis, providing rapid, frequent public transit tied with sustainable transit-oriented development is needed. And this fight for a conversation is one that will benefit so many Torontonians in the future. I think about it like this. Come 50 years from now, a William Jr., my child or grandchildren, and his friends will be able to take the subway to use recreational services at the new Newton Brook Community Center, grab groceries for his family at the new H-Mart, and quickly connect to all parts of the region. And this is like something that I live with, and I want my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren to live with. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry for sneezing and coughing. The next deputant is John Malinti, also from Bayview Cummer Neighborhood Association, on video. He's not available? Okay. Paul Honus, you're online?
Yes.
Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mayor Chow, distinguished councilors, deputants, and guests. I'm speaking on behalf of the Young Corridor Condominium Association, the YCCA, and I agree completely with the previous deputants. The YCCA is an association of boards of directors from condominiums that straddle Yonge Street on both sides, from Highway 401 north to Steeles Avenue. And although we focus on the specific interests of condo dwellers, we believe that our position on this matter is representative of many of our other dear neighbors. Our area currently includes 3 TTC stations: Shepherd, North York Center, and Finch, the terminal station. We have long-standing concerns about the impacts of traffic on our local environment and health. And without these existing stations, we're certain that the livability of our neighborhoods would be significantly impacted. We're going to need another one. We're one of the 4 areas that the city has targeted for more intense growth, although we have already exceeded the previous population projections for North York for 2041. Since I moved here in 2010, I've watched 10 condos come up. I can see them from right here at my desk. The city's intensification targets for the Cummer area were predicated on the creation of this station, and without it, the traffic and congestion will increase dramatically. We advocate strongly for intelligent development that considers the whole community, and transportation is always a key component of such growth. Cummer Station would not only provide a way for all of those new residents to access the rest of the city with minimal environmental impact, but also for the rest of the city to come visit us. As other deputants have already stated, Cummer Station just makes sense. We're also alarmed by the looming specter of climate change, and Cummer Station provides the best option to take thousands and thousands of cars off our streets daily and help us meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals, which are already in jeopardy. Without provincial financial support for this station, it will not happen. We strongly approve of the motion council adopted directing the city manager and the CFO to request funding of this station from the province. We respectfully request that you do everything in your power to help make the station happen, or at the very least, to provide the components necessary to build it later. Thank you all very much for your time and your efforts on this issue on our behalf, especially for our representative, Councillor Chang. Good day.
Thank you for your deputation. Any other speaker on this item? If not, Councillor Chang.
Thank you. Questions for staff? So thank you so much for this report. We really appreciate this business case. I'm wondering how many boardings and alightings would a Cummer station see in 2051?
Through the mayor, our modeling estimates that we probably have around 23,000 boardings and alightings in 2051 at this station.
And based on the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe for major transit station areas, what is the number of people and jobs per hectare that warrants a station? What is the threshold that is part of the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe?
Through the mayor, I'm sorry, Councillor, I don't have that threshold off the top of my head, but at this station, we exceed that threshold and would see, again, by 2051, about 249 people and jobs per hectare. So it meets the growth plan requirements.
And what were the key differences between Metrolinx's business case and the one that you have put forward? What are the main objections that you have for the business case that was presented by Metrolinx?
So through the mayor, we didn't think that the Metrolinx case fully considered the growth and development in this area. The other thing is that the way they do some of their measures, a station at the end of the line is sometimes treated differently from a station in the middle in terms of its impact on travel times. We think that's a little bit of a false measure. And so some of the things that the city does with our rapid transit evaluation framework are a little bit broader than how Metrolinx looks at these things.
And how many current residents live near Cummer and Yonge?
So in 2021, we had around 4,800.
And what is that projected to be by 2051?
So that will, it's almost tripling to 13,800 is our estimate.
How many jobs might be located near that node?
Again, we anticipate an increase to around 5,700 jobs within 500 meters of the station.
So how does these metrics compare with the stations that the province did move forward with? So in comparison to Clark or Royal Orchard?
So one of the differences is that there's not the level of development in York Region around these stations, and they're looking to what could happen there in terms of potential. So we thought the case for those stations was not as strong as for the Cummer station.
And at this point, the RFP has gone out without a mention of Cummer. What is the only possible way that this station could be funded?
Through the chair to yourself, Councillor, in terms of what possible way that this could be funded, I think is a question that is going to be, it has to be a discussion between the city and the province.
So more of a political decision?
Yes.
And if we, worst case scenario, we can't get the funding for a full station right now, what is the minimum spend required so that future generations could still build a station there? How much would it cost to ensure that the option is built in as they are tunneling right at Yonge and Cummer?
Through the chair to you, Councillor, the best option at this point in time would be for there to be the head walls for the station box inserted into the RFP that's currently in market. What that will do is it will allow for the end posts, so to speak, of the station to be established. It allows the tunnel boring machine to progress through through the two head walls, and then that would allow for the future construction if we chose to do that at a later time.
Thank you very much for your answers.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions to the staff, anyone? If not, speaking on this item, Councillor Chang?
Thank you. 23,000 boardings and alightings during a typical weekday in 2051. What happens to those 23,000 boarding and alightings when there's no subway station there? Are they driving? Are they on their mopeds? What do we envision for this intersection? At this point, we envision up to almost 6,000 jobs there, businesses. How will people access those restaurants, those doctors' offices, if there is no station there? This is about a fight for the future. It's about good planning. It's about building the transit that is necessary for the future we all envision, which is a future where we are transit-oriented and not dependent on cars. We were backed into a corner because the density was approved based on a Cummer station existing, and suddenly the rug was pulled off from under our feet and it disappeared off the plans. And now you've heard it from our staff. The only way that it would be funded is a political decision. And it was a political decision to defund it. So one, I fight for this, I'm very grateful for all of my deputants that came today, my residents. This is a new muscle for all of them to show up and fight for something. But really and truly, we're not fighting for this moment in time and the people who live there. We're fighting for the next generation. We don't know how long it's going to take to build the station because we have seen a lot of delays in our city, but the future should have a transit-oriented community. We should not have 23,000 boardings and alightings be eliminated and have no other option but to take other modes of transportation. So we are still asking the province to come to the table, but we are also asking that in the moment, if we can't get an entire station funded, can we at least get the head walls there so that hopefully the next generation of politicians will not politicize infrastructure and will just do what is right, do what is logical. We hope for that. We hope for a better day for future generations. So thank you for this business case that is very strong, and we hope that it will move the hearts and minds of our fellow colleagues at Queen's Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cole. Sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, politicizing infrastructure. I don't think there's been a transit line. Oh, I have a motion. Yeah, sorry, thanks.
Here's the motion. Okay, there you go.
Stop politicizing infrastructure. There's my motion. Okay, for the item of City Council, without recommendation, direct the Chief Planner, Executive, in consultation with the Chief Planner, to basically put in head walls. That's what this is about. Just to give an opportunity. Once they come to realization, you may need a station there that at least we protect for it. So that's the motion. And I'm just getting back to the Councillor Chang from Willowdale. Politicizing infrastructure. I don't think there's ever been any subway line, transit line built in my lifetime that wasn't politicized. Was there one, Josh? I can't remember one. Anyways, try and find one, okay? You want to talk about the Shepherd Stubway, for instance? Everything is political. The reality of it is. So, and then the other hand, if you let just the engineers do it and the consultants do it, I don't know which is worse. But listen, I just want to say that Councillor Chang has been very active with her community and fighting for a station there at Cummer. And I commend her for that because she is essentially listening to people. She lives and works in the area. She is very active with her community, and that's what the community wants, and that's what she sees all around her. North York is exploding with people, with activity. I was up there Saturday night with the holiday Christmas market, and never mind City Hall, the action now in Toronto is not Scarborough anymore, not City, it's basically at Mel Lastman Square. That's where all the action is. So you got to go. There is a Toronto north of Eglinton, as I always say, especially at Mel Lastman Square. Anyways, so this really is a good compromise here with, I think, Councillor Carroll understands it. Staff has been consulted. It's a way of protecting for it. And this brings back, Gord Perks will remember, we had an interesting battle of the Park home station. Remember with Mel Lastman? When he said, there's density coming here, there's jobs coming here. And at that time, it was, I think, the TTC saying, no, it's too close to Shepherd, you can't have one there. And now it's called North York Centre Station. And where would North York be without that Park home station? Yeah, exactly. Then there was another you might say, important decision along the same vein, and that was the Oakwood station.
Oh, yes.
The original station on Oakwood, on the Eglinton crosstown, was there in the original plan to build the subway. Councillor Morley, in 1990, we started building a subway on Eglinton, okay? A subway that was going to go from Yonge Street all the way to Mount Dennis. Anyways, and then that was, Mike Harris came along and said, subways are a thing of the past, let's fill it in. So we had dug it all up, and they came in with all the concrete cement trucks and filled it all up with concrete and said, we never want to see a subway here on Eglinton again. So anyways, that's a bit of history. So, but on that original line, there was an Oakwood station. And it was there because the community said, especially in Little Jamaica, they said, this will be an incredible revitalization center for the residents, the business in the area, so we've got to have. So the station was in originally, then they came along, and I know it was Metrolinx, whoever it was, who lose track, but they said, no Oakwood station, don't need it. So then all the elected officials in the area, we all got together and we got involved politically.
Politics.
On behalf of the people of Eglinton West, and said, no, we want this station at Oakwood. Well, we got it back in the plan as originally was, and now there is an Oakwood station. And it's the only station with housing on it, believe it or not. So anyways, so that's what this fight is, a repeat of history where you've got to look ahead and just remember that subway lines or LRT lines are not speeding trains that go from one part of the city way into some other, now especially this line, all the way up to Richmond Hill. We won't get into that debate, but so subway stations, LRT stations, are also economic hubs, residential hubs, retail hubs. They're people hubs. It's not just about people going through at record speed by car or by subway. They should stop, shop, recreate, live, visit. So we can't just look at subway stations as rapid transit, just flying through neighborhoods. And North York is no longer the slumbering suburban community of, remember Dempsey's Hardware there? Yeah, okay, that's gone. Dempsey's Hardware is gone. So I invite you all to come up to North York.
John Fielding just moved it a couple of blocks.
Okay. But anyways, on that corner, there's no more little. So this fight for Cummer Station is a fight
Before we
for
lose quorum,
the
let's
future
keep
of North York, the commercial, residential, cultural future of North York. Our grandchildren will love the fact we stood up for this station because, believe me, they'll use it. And many other thousand people use Cummer Station. Thank you very much, and I'll hope you support the motion. Long speech, okay.
Councillor Perks.
Yes, I encourage all members of the committee to support Councillor Cole's motion. A number of us have been working collectively to try to find a path forward here. I do have a few things to say. At some not too distant point in the future, Councillor Cole and I are going to be sitting on a park bench, maybe in Trinity Spadina, insisting that every passerby listen to our old transit war stories. And, you know, probably they'll call the cops on us, but whatever. Hopefully by then the 4th emergency service will take care of us. But, you know, he makes a valid point that transit planning in the city of Toronto has been erratic. It's been fraught with poor decisions. You mentioned the Shepherd Stubway. I remember as a young activist convincing Councillor Chow that she should vote against it, which she did, and you did not. Yes, because, you know, it really should have been light rail. The only time in my memory the TTC has ever been given a useful direction on transit planning was in March of 2003. And then Commissioner Miller asked the TTC to go out and look at, for each dollar spent, which action gets you the most riders, right? It became the ridership growth strategy. And the conclusion was that for a dollar spent, the best way to move more people is to add more service. Just buy buses and run them more often. And only when the surface bus system cannot manage the volume, like you would have bumper to bumper buses stuck in traffic. Only then do you look at moving up to light rail. And only when the light rail is full do you look at the incredibly expensive option of going underground, subway. It's the only time, like I was an activist on this stuff for 20 years, I've been here 16, so in 36 years, it's the only time I've seen council actually ask the professionals, tell us how you get transit riders. This whole extension up Yonge, I mean, it's bananas. The subway, that subway line is already full. We're going to spend a fortune on automatic train control and expanding the interchange at Yonge and Bloor just to try to accommodate the riders we're going to get on this line without extending it. So when I saw Councillor Morley's original motion, I have to, Councillor Cheng's original member motion, I confess I broke out in hives. Like honestly, nothing is, there should be a rule. When you're elected to Toronto City Council, somebody goes and searches your house to make sure you don't have a map of Toronto and a box of pencil crayons. Because that's the way transit planning has been done too often. But we're stuck with this extension. And I think the responsible thing to do, and this is why I'll support the motion, is not to say, let's spend the money to build the station before the development happens. We've been burned that way too many times, but rather protect for the development at a very modest cost. And I think it's the right way out of this mess that we're in with this Yonge Street extension. But I encourage all of you, just buy some buses. Thank you for your time.
Yep. And you don't really want me to give you a speech that I made in 2014 during election about Transit City versus the subway in Scarborough. I think, and then Councillor Matlow then spent the next 7-8 years repeating, I was repeating your speech or you said the same thing for many, many years. But I digress. I don't see any other speaker on this item. On Deputy Mayor Cole's motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Great. Thank you so much and have a good lunch.